Chapter 638. You can search Poisonous Wife in Baidu. Search for the latest chapter. In the eyes of Wu Rong and the people of Chimo Circle, this might be an extremely ordinary stone. But in Su Jiuzhou's eyes, its pneuma was exactly the same as that of the 12th grade Black Lotus she saw in the cottage in Immortal Ascension City. The difference was only the strength of the pneuma. Yi Che, the talent of Ghost Clan, guarded the 12th grade Black Lotus for 40,000 years, which showed how precious it was. But in Chimo Circle, it was everywhere? Su Li was surprised and pleasantly surprised. If what Wu Rong said was true, although these gravel couldn't make her remaining 6th grade Lotus stand manifest, with enough Black Lotus, the remaining 12th grade Black Lotus transforming sword might be nurtured in a very short time. She hoped that the legendary secret skill of prehistoric Ghost Clan would not disappoint her. Thinking of this, Su Li put down the stone in her hand and said, "I want to go outside alone." Go outside? Wu Rong was shocked. There is no danger outside during the day, but you are alone. I will walk around and come back soon. Su Li smiled and turned away. Although Wu Rong was very worried, the captain was not at home and she had to take care of the camp. She could only tell her again and again, "Then you must walk around and don't go far." "I will." Looking at Su Li's back, Wu Rong scratched her head and murmured, "How long has it been?" "She can communicate with me without any obstacle." "Has her memory recovered?" The gate of the camp had been open during the day. Su Li walked out directly and suddenly felt that the pneuma in the air had changed. There was a lingering death pneuma. Is it because the dead zone is too close? Su Li guessed and looked up at the gloomy sky. It would take some time for her injury to recover, and it was still too difficult for her to fly in the air. After walking for a distance, she suddenly stopped and squatted down to rub the dust off her hand. She had only walked 300 meters away from the campsite, and the solid soil had turned into loose sand. There was no way to grow food on such soil. Naturally, mortals would not be able to survive and would face the danger of starvation. Li Qing's camp should be shrouded in a special field similar to an array formation. It's neither a restriction nor an array formation, and it's most likely unique to this world. I can't understand it, but it's probably because of the harsh living environment. While thinking, Su Li got up and continued to walk forward. Although she did not fly, her walking speed was definitely much faster than that of Li Qing. But in a moment, the sandy land around her became hard rocks as dark as ink. They had arrived at the dead zone. Su Li scanned with her divine awareness, and then her eyes focused. She flashed and appeared under a boulder. In the crack of the boulder, a palm-sized black lotus was quietly blooming, exuding a strong vitality that was incompatible with the dead zone. Born from the dead, Su Li seemed to understand something. She reached out and plucked the black lotus. It was cold in her hand. After a while, the black lotus withered and drifted away, merging with the black debris all over the sky. With self-mockery in her eyes, Su Li crushed the rhizome in her hand and sighed, "Even if you have such ability, but you are still too weak." Was she talking about Black Lotus or herself? Who could say for sure? Su Li was not a sentimental person. Even though the unique way of life of Black Lotus made her sigh with emotion, it was only for a moment. Soon, Su Li got rid of distractions and began to look for the gravel of Black Lotus. The pneuma of those that had become debris had already dispersed in the dead zone. She didn't want to expose it. It was not convenient for her to practice in the dead zone, so she could only find more black stones to take back. Fortunately, the universe ring in the Chimo Circle could also be used. In the entire camp, she only saw one universe ring from Li Qing. She still remembered that the practitioner she met in the passage space told her that the universe ring was very precious in the Chimo Circle, and ordinary people couldn't have it. Li Qing just broke through the 7th level, Huashan realm, not long ago, so he was not qualified to get the universe ring when he was at the 6th level. But she indirectly asked Wu Rong that Li Qing always had the ability to store things with him before that. Coupled with the special means set up in the camp, she had to think about Li Qing's identity. It was not a good thing to expose it prematurely. Before nightfall, Su Li returned to the camp, but Li Qing hadn't come back yet. Seeing Su Li was intact, Wu Rong was relieved. She ran over and said, "You must be tired and hungry after going out for so long. Dinner is almost ready. Why don't you take a rest first?" Su Li nodded and was about to leave. Suddenly, she heard a noise at the door. Hearing the sound, she turned her head and saw Wu Rong's expression suddenly changed slightly. Wu Rong rushed over and shouted, "Get out of the way!" Su Li also followed. Li Qing was covered with blood and his face was pale. He was supported into the main tent by Wu Rong, who looked serious. Li Dazhuang and others also had some injuries, but they didn't look as serious as Li Qing. Black Lotus was a sacred object of Ghost Clan in Qin Shui Circle. Human clan would naturally be hurt if they touched it. Li Qing had the pneuma of being eroded by Black Lotus. Anyway, Li Qing was equivalent to a warrior of Huashan realm. No matter how careless he was, it was impossible for him to be scratched by stones. Su Li's eyes flashed and followed into the tent. Li Qing had taken off all his blood-stained clothes and leaned on the bed tiredly. Seeing Su Li coming over, Wu Rong was flustered and shouted anxiously, "Come and help me. It's too slow for me to deal with it alone." Seeing Li Qing close his eyes and gasp more heavily than before, Su Li didn't hesitate and said, "What am I going to do?" Hearing this, Li Qing suddenly opened his eyes in surprise. Have you learned the language?" Su Li nodded and stared at Wu Rong's movements. Wu Rong pointed to the dense small wounds on Li Qing's body and said quickly, "We have to clean up all the wounds of the captain as soon as possible. The poison of the dead region is not a joke. If the captain takes it, his strength is likely to decline and there will be sequelae." Without saying anything, Su Li picked up the extra cloth and dipped it in water to wipe Li Qing's wounds. Every time she wiped a wound, she would secretly absorb the pneuma of Black Lotus. There were too many wounds on Li Qing's body. Under Su Li's deliberate control, it took her 2 hours to absorb the pneuma of Black Lotus from all the wounds. "Captain, how do you feel?" Wu Rong looked worried. At this moment, Li Qing's face had recovered a little ruddy. He smiled and nodded slightly. "Thanks to you too, I feel much more relaxed." "That's good." Wu Rong looked scared. "Captain, did you encounter a corpse monster today? How big is it?" Li Qing nodded with a slightly serious face and said in a stern voice, "Not big, only the size of a palm, but it is extremely fast. Go and prepare for it. We will move out early tomorrow morning." "Okay. I'm going now." Wu Rong left the tent without saying anything, and also took away the warriors who were still waiting in front of the tent to arrange the matters. Li Qing sensed the rapid recovery of the injuries in her body. She had been poisoned by the dead region, but she had never recovered so quickly. Although Su Li did it very secretly and she couldn't sense it, the only variable here was her. Since she didn't want to expose it, Li Qing didn't mention it. She just smiled and asked, "Can you communicate normally?" Su Li nodded and said frankly, "Yes, what hurt you?" "A monster in the dead region. We call it the corpse monster. It rarely appears in the periphery of the dead region. I usually only explore around the dead region." Speaking of this, Li Qing paused and said awkwardly, "Unless I get lost. Last time I got lost and went deep into the dead region, so I happened to meet you. Fortunately, I didn't encounter the corpse monster. Otherwise, we would all be finished." "Corpse monster? Are the dead people turned into monsters?" "No, not all of them are people. Many of them are animals, and their whole body is rotten and oozing pus, which is very terrible." Li Qing looked dignified. "I can meet it in the periphery, which means that the dead region is expanding again. When I first established the camp 30 years ago, the dead region only expanded once every 5 years. Now it has been shortened to 1 year. It is exhilarating." Li Qing's eyes showed deep worry. I know that this world is not infinite. If one day the dead region occupies every inch of this world, where should we go? Su Li's eyes flashed. She couldn't answer Li Qing's question. After all, she was not in Qin Shui's circle. But, although the breath of the Black Lotus was poisonous, it didn't have the effect of refining the corpse. It was just a pure ghost poison. There must be secrets in the dead region. After her injury recovered, she might go to explore it. But before that, Su Li sighed when she looked inside her body, which was still terrible. Li Qing thought that she was depressed about the current situation, so he comforted her. Leave those things to the big shots. Let's not talk about it. But you can learn a language in just 3 days. You must have a high cultivation, right? Speaking of this, Li Qing blinked and said cautiously, as if he was afraid to stimulate Su Li, "Can you tell me your name?" Su Li was stunned. Then she dipped her finger in water and wrote 2 words in the red demon language beside the bed. After writing, she raised her head and chuckled. "My name is Su Li. Su means awakening and Li means dripping. Your name is really nice." Li Qing praised, then changed his mind and said, "Our camp is made up of less than 10% warriors, and most of them are low-level warriors. Your cultivation is definitely not low. Are you willing to stay in my camp and continue to search for survivors?" Su Li was silent for a moment and asked, "Haven't you thought about going to a large camp? Your personal strength is too small after all. If there is danger one day, such a camp will be wiped out with a little carelessness, and your efforts will be in vain." The smile on Li Qing's face immediately disappeared a little. She didn't know this, but she also had her difficulties. "If it's inconvenient to answer, you don't have to say it." Su Li's still pale face showed some gentleness. "I'm happy to provide shelter for my savior." "I'm not a savior. I just did what I could." Li Qing waved her hand embarrassedly. "By the way, I don't know how your injury has recovered recently." Su Li sensed for a while and shook her head and sighed. "Now the injury has recovered, less than 1%. The latest chapter of Poisonous Wife, the full text of Poisonous Wife, the download of Poisonous Wife, the Poisonous Wife. For the convenience of reading next time, you can click Collection below to record this time, Chapter 638. You can read it next time when you open the bookshelf. If you like The Poisonous Wife, please recommend this book to your friends, QQ, blog, WeChat, etc. Thank you for your support. Chapter 639. You can search Poisonous Wife in Baidu. Search for the latest chapter. Less than 1 in 100? Li Qing looked at Su Li's serious expression and was stunned for a moment. Suddenly, she burst into laughter. She touched Su Li's head and said softly, "You should take care of yourself first. The situation is not so bad that you need to show up." Although she didn't know Su Li's cultivation, she was almost equal to an ordinary person with such an injury. Unless she was a supreme existence like the Sky-Burning Lord and the Deputy Lord. But Su Li was so young. How could it be possible? Su Li knew what Li Qing was thinking, but she didn't say much. She just said, "If there is anything I can do for you, just tell me." "Got it." Li Qing waved her hand. Su Li smiled and turned away. After she could walk, Li Qing naturally changed her residence. In order to take care of her, she asked Li Dazhuang to move and gave the tent next door to Su Li. Early in the next morning, Su Li was awakened by Wu Rong. "Little Li, are you still asleep? Get up." Wu Rong came in and pulled up Su Li, who had just pretended to lie down. She said, "Today our camp will be moved 10 miles away. You are still injured. I am tired. I will help you pack up the tent." Su Li sleepily sat up and said, "Thank you. Don't mention it. You should put on clothes that are convenient for walking. We will set off soon." Wu Rong smiled. Su Li nodded and took off the heavy soul robe. She suddenly felt relaxed. She almost forgot that this magic treasure still had a suppressive effect on her. When she was in the peak state, The heavy soul robe had already lost its original function. For her, it was only equivalent to a piece of clothing that was not easy to be torn. But now Ursuli smiled and took the heavy soul robe in her hand. She walked to the door and saw that it was still dark outside. More than 100 tents had been dismantled. Large and small packages were everywhere. Many men and women could be seen busy nervously in the fog of the night. These people probably began to pack up in the middle of the night. Except for her sensitivity to danger, she didn't care much about what happened in the camp. She didn't find it last night. It seemed that the space in Li Qing's cosmos ring was limited. Otherwise, he could have simply stored all the dead objects in the camp into the ring and taken them away. Such a long preparation time would not have been necessary. At this moment, a tall and thin warrior in his early 30s came over. He seemed to be a little embarrassed. He scratched his head and said with a smile, "Hello, my name is Dai Hechuan. Captain saved you that day, and I was also there. Your name is Suli?" Suli nodded and stared at Dai Hechuan with her clear eyes. "What can I do for you?" Dai Hechuan immediately blushed and stammered, "No, nothing, I just want to apologize. That day, I thought you were a character from an ancient tomb. I was too rude, Xiaochun. If you have time to talk with Sister Li outside, why don't you come in and pack your things?" The sound of Wu Rong gnashing her teeth came from the room. Dai Hechuan's expression changed slightly. He smiled apologetically and gave a fist and palm salute to Su Li. Then he immediately lifted the curtain and went in. "Sister Rong, I'm coming to help." Su Li turned around and looked at Dai Hechuan's flattering appearance. She couldn't help but feel a little funny. Dai Hechuan's cultivation was the same as Wu Rong's. Even if he was a little worse, the difference would not be too big. What made them a little afraid of Wu Rong? However, even if she was afraid, she could still see that Dai Hechuan's expression when he looked at Wu Rong was not fake at all. The circle of the whole camp was quite simple, which made her feel the long-lost simple and pure comradeship. Perhaps it was because of this that there was not much darkness in this small camp. Even in the secular world, dark and dirty things were always inevitable. But if there was a bright and kind person to guard this camp, the light of humanity would illuminate the dark corners, make the darkness retreat, and make it more beautiful. The only flaw was that Li Qing was too weak. Su Li looked back at the deep night outside the camp. She turned around and found an empty corner to enter Tsang Lei's cave. As soon as she entered the cave, Hong Baizhu cried and rushed to her. "Sister, brother Su Bai is missing." At this moment there was no disgust for Su Bai in her eyes, but concern and worry. "When are we going to find brother Su Bai?" "Don't worry." Su Li squatted down and wiped the blood and tears from the corners of Hong Baizhu's eyes. She said gently, "When my injury is fully recovered, I will soon find brother Bai." Hong Baizhu responded with a heavy voice. She immediately raised her head and saw the first elder of the Ling family who was floating over. At this moment, his body was much more solid than at the end of the divine awareness. It seemed that he had gained a lot of benefits from staying with Hong Baizhu. "Young Su Li, my little friend, have you come to the Qimo circle?" Although the first elder of the Ling family was in Tsang Lei's cave, he could see everything that happened in the outside world. Naturally, he knew Su Li's identity. He wanted to respectfully call her Madam of the Young Lord, but he changed his mind when the words were on the tip of his tongue, for fear of making Su Li uncomfortable. However, with this relationship, he did not resist Su Li's proposal at all. Instead, he wanted to help Su Li get through the difficulties. Yes, the space crossing rune played a role. Su Li nodded and accepted it. The first elder of the Ling family covered his chest with fear. It was too risky. "Su Li, my little friend, if the teleportation rune failed, and you were seriously injured on the spot, you would become the meat in the hands of Bai Mo." Su Li's eyes flashed, and her voice was calm. "There is no if in everything. If I don't do it without full confidence, I have died many times. The first elder of the Ling family sighed and said, You are right. Since you have come to the Chimo circle, you may find a place to practice with all your strength. The Chimo circle began to decline in the era of the Lord of the Realm. In fact, the dead zone is not poisonous, nor is it a foreign invasion, but this circle is coming to an end and aging quickly. This may be an opportunity. The first elder of the Ling family's eyes were full of vigor. I once heard from the Lord of the Realm that the Chimo circle is coming to an end. Its environment is equivalent to being exposed in the big starry world, without the jurisdiction of any natural law. So, you can practice here without being suppressed by any rules. Su Li, if you have any skills that you haven't finished practicing, you can make good use of this time. Is there such a saying? Su Li was surprised. In the past few days, 80% of her energy was focused on healing, and the remaining 20% was absorbing the pneuma of the Black Lotus. She only practiced Sueyu tactics occasionally, so she really didn't notice this change. After practicing Sueyu tactics for many years, she still stayed in the second jade membrane realm. But even so, it made her physical strength improved a lot, and it could shield her from the detection of the natural law to a certain extent. If she could practice to the third, fourth, or even the highest level, even she was looking forward to the effect. Thank you for telling me, First Elder. Su Li thanked him sincerely, and the First Elder was a little embarrassed. Although he understood that Su Li's life was ruined by Mo, his young master also made a lot of sins. He hadn't seen the young Lord Su Buong yet, and he didn't know whether he inherited the bloodline of the Ling family. After Su Li said goodbye to the First Elder, she came to the island where Su Bai usually lived. Originally, it was just a barren dead place, but under the influence of Su Bai, it became a place full of vitality. In the center of the island, the pneuma of the divine thunder of wood was still very strong. A trace of green thunder entered the body through the pores, giving rise to a feeling of numbness and stimulating the production of new blood. This place was extremely good for her healing. Su Li sat cross-legged, and Sueyu tactics disappeared automatically. Ghost Valley meditation direction suddenly ran, and the energy of the thunder wandering around was suddenly attracted, wrapped Su Li in it, and turned into a green light cluster. She didn't want to use the thunder ability left by Su Bai, but the upcoming unknown danger made her have to take precautions early. Who knew if there was a higher existence in the corpse monster that Li Qing mentioned? At this moment, outside, Li Qing stood in the center of the camp, looking at the sun that was about to rise in the sky, and felt slightly relaxed. The night was probably spent safely. She reached out and touched the universe ring. Seeing the full storage space in it, she sighed softly and issued an order. The rest of the luggage will be divided equally by all the strong young people. The old, the young, the sick and the weak will help each other. She knew that some people would die because they couldn't hold on in this migration, but in order to save everyone, she had to be ruthless. Thinking of this, Li Qing turned her head to look at a dozen warriors on the other side, and her eyes became sharp. Wu Rong, Dai Hichuan, you two will lead the way, and De Zhuang will lead the other low-level warriors in the middle, and I will bring up the rear, understand? Yes. Everyone shouted in unison. Captain, I will lead the way. Don't worry, I promise to find an absolutely safe place to stay. Wu Rong smiled confidently. Suddenly, she sensed the light of dawn dimming again, and couldn't help but tilt her head to look in the direction of the dead zone in confusion. This time, her usually smiling face was instantly distorted because of fear, and her voice trembled uncontrollably. Captain, behind. Li Qing's heart thumped, and countless scenes flashed in her mind. Finally, her memory stopped at the moment when the large camp with the honor of Qianqing was destroyed many years ago. Her father's heavy sigh faintly sounded in her ears. The sun doesn't rise every day. Li Qing slowly turned around, and looked at the huge, strange shadow that was half a body taller than the wall. Her memory flashed a few days ago, and her lips couldn't help but tremble. Giant corpse? How could it be impossible? I clearly set up a concealment rune array, and this is just the periphery of the dead zone. Impossible? Jie jie jie, hee hee. Two completely different voices came out of the giant corpse's mouth. Li Qing then saw a palm-sized monster lying next to the giant corpse's mouth. It was the corpse that had attacked her a few days ago. At this moment, she understood everything. What she had encountered was not an ordinary corpse, but a high-level corpse with intelligence. It was it that had attracted the giant corpse. Li Qing's eyes were red, and she felt a wave of despair. Familiar and painful memories were dug out from the deepest part of her mind by the giant corpse in front of her. They were of the same level, but the giant corpse in front of her was not any weaker than the one that had destroyed her father's camp. Its strength was at least at the 8th level, crossing tribulation, and her father had been killed by the giant corpse with one slap. She was just a little 7th level martial artist. What could she do? The latest chapter of The Poisonous Wife. The Poisonous Wife's full text reading address. The Poisonous Wife's download address. The Poisonous Wife's mobile reading address. For the convenience of reading next time, you can click Collect below to record this time, Chapter 639. You can read the record next time you open the bookshelf. If you like The Poisonous Wife's above, please recommend this book to your friends, QQ, blog, WeChat, etc. Thank you for your support. Chapter 640. You can search for Poisonous Wife on Baidu. You can search for the latest chapter. The corpse monster seemed to enjoy everyone's frightened and sluggish expressions. It was not in a hurry to destroy the camp. It just gently pushed the wall, and the wall collapsed. Rubble rolled down, and some people could not avoid it in time and were directly buried in the rubble. Run! Run away! Screams rang out. Many people panicked and ran in all directions. The corpse monster's laughter became more and more cheerful. Li Qing took 2 steps in the opposite direction. Her eyes were red, and she stared at the corpse monster with eyes full of hatred. I'll cover you. You take everyone and leave. Li Dazhuang's eyes immediately turned red, and he hugged Li Qing's thigh. No. Sister, you're the only family I have left. Wu Rong. Take him away. Li Qing shouted, and Wu Rong was immediately alerted. She stepped forward, knocked Li Dazhuang out, and casually threw him to Daihechuan. Then, she made up her mind and walked to Li Qing's side. Although she had never seen such a huge corpse monster in front of her in her life, she still smiled and showed her white teeth. How long can you delay it by yourself? I'll stay. Daihechuan, you'll be the camp leader in the future. You must take everyone out of here alive, do you hear me? Get out of here. Daihechuan's smile was uglier than crying. He looked back 3 times with Li Dazhuang on his back, but in the end, he gritted his teeth and disappeared into the night with Li Dazhuang on his back. The giant corpse was still not in a hurry. Looking at the direction where Daihechuan disappeared, the little corpse monster lying next to its mouth showed a strange expression, as if it was smiling. There were only 2 people left in the camp, and the ground was full of supplies that had not been taken away. At this time, Wu Rong was not nervous anymore. She smiled and said, Captain, I know you have an unusual past, and you've even seen the giant corpse before. Where is its weakness? Li Qing took a deep breath. She could still vaguely remember that during the catastrophe, an ice-blue figure fell from the sky and instantly froze the giant corpse into an ice sculpture. Little girl, next time you encounter this kind of giant corpse, just run away. Don't think that I can kill it, it's impossible. But no one knows what will happen in the future. Who knows if you'll be stupid enough to fight a giant corpse one day. Its weakness is the black area on its chest. The stronger the giant corpse, the smaller the black area. Got it? Thinking of this, Li Qing was about to say something, but the giant corpse suddenly raised its arm to hit them again. Her pupils shrank, and without saying a word, she hugged Wu Rong and rolled to the side. Rumble! There was a loud noise between heaven and earth as the ground shook violently. Countless materials exploded into powder. An extremely deep crack extended from the giant corpse's feet into the depths of the night. Wu Rong crawled up and stared blankly at the crack that was only a few inches away from her right foot. She couldn't help but shiver. If it weren't for the captain's quick reaction, she would already be a dead person. Puff! Li Qingsong propped her upper body up and spat out a mouthful of blood. Her heart was filled with despair. She had only been brushed by the aftershock, and she had been severely injured. This kind of enemy, how could she defeat them? Is that the giant corpse's Achilles heel? Captain, the Achilles heel is so small. The giant corpse's palm can cover it. Li Qing covered Wu Rong's mouth. Looking at her anxious expression, she took a deep breath. If we don't succeed, we die. If we don't succeed, we die, Wu Rong muttered to herself. Looking up at the approaching giant corpse, the shadow of death gradually shrouded her heart. The hope of success was too small. Li Qing wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth and turned around to cover Wu Rong's movements. Seeing the shadow of fear gradually approaching, she emptied her mind. Hundreds of years of life, from childhood to now, kept flashing before her eyes. At this moment, the corpse monster suddenly stopped. Now! Wu Rong suddenly flashed behind Li Qing, raising her hand. A special crossbow arrow shot out from her sleeve. Then with a snap, the corpse monster caught the arrow in its hand, broke it, and threw it to the side. How can this be? Wu Rong suddenly felt cold, her mind blank. Li Qing saw the corpse monster stop. Even if it was provoked by the crossbow arrow, it did not move forward. She couldn't help but feel strange. Suddenly, she noticed that the gaze of the corpse monster was behind her. She couldn't help but look back. At this time, she saw a thin figure standing not far from her. Su Li! Li Qing exclaimed with disbelief in her eyes. Why didn't you leave with him? Su Li looked calm. She walked to Li Qing and squinted at the giant corpse. She whispered, If I leave, I will lose 2 lifesavers. Wu Rong came to her senses and saw Su Li. She looked excited. But even if you stay, what's the difference between that and death? Su Li made a decision. She stared at the giant corpse and transmitted the sound. You said its weakness is the black mark on its chest? Li Qing heard the transmission and finally confirmed that Su Li was not simple. But it didn't mean anything. What's more, Li Qing's worry surfaced in her words. But your injury? Before Li Qing finished her words, she saw the figure in front of her suddenly disappeared. She suddenly turned her head, only to see the last scene of Su Li punching the giant corpse. Boom! A huge black shadow was sent flying by a huge force and disappeared in front of the 2 people, who were shocked. Then, before the 2 people came to their senses, Su Li had returned to her original place with no expression. She put an isolation inhibition in the bodies of the 2 people and disappeared quickly. It didn't take long for the giant corpse to come again, but its appearance was not the same as the previous one. It was taller, and a palm-sized corpse monster was hanging in its mouth. Looking at the empty camp, the little corpse monster sniffed hard, but it could not sense Li Qing's breath again. Squeak, 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 squeak! After screaming for a while, the little corpse monster had to give up and leave. After Su Li ran for a few miles with Li Qing and Wu Rong, she sensed that the threatening breath behind her disappeared. She was relieved. The injury this time was too serious. It could not be recovered in just a few days. Even with the help of Su Bai's remaining divine thunder, she could only temporarily suppress the injury. That punch was her full strength. If there was another giant corpse, she would also die on the spot. So, she made a prompt decision. After punching the giant corpse with all her strength, she put the inhibition on the 2 people and immediately ran away. After slowing down and putting down the two people who were confused, Su Li snorted and couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. She was about to fall down. Su Li. Li Qing quickly held her, grateful and worried. How do you feel? She was really afraid that Su Li's blow would exhaust her vitality. Su Li resisted the dizziness and squeezed a smile. I'm fine. The main force is in front of me. This time, run away a little farther so that I have more time to heal. After saying this, Su Li fainted. Song Lei's cave was also opened at the same time. If there was really unpredictable danger, Hong Baizhu would also appear to help her. But the rules of Chi Mo Circle changed. According to the first elder of Ling family, if ghosts appeared in the world without rules, they would be seriously injured immediately. This was also the reason why she could only fight alone. Sister Hong Baizhu stood at the door of Song Lei's cave, staring at Su Li's sleeping face and clenching her little hands. She had never seen her sister in such a mess. She hoped that she could help at this moment, even just a little bit. Li Qing helped Su Li wipe the nearest blood, gently carried her on her back, and touched Wu Rong, who was still in a daze. She smiled and said, "Let's go and catch up with Dazhuang and others. We will directly change the route to the nearest hemp camp." Wu Rong was still replaying the scene of Su Li blowing the giant corpse away in her mind. Hearing this, she came to her senses and seemed to know Li Qing again. She exclaimed, "Captain, don't you hate Qianxing Camp the most?" Li Qing sighed and said, "Most of the camp supplies were lost, and even the rune matrix was not taken. How can we continue to feed people? Moreover, Su Li also needs a safe environment to heal." Speaking of this, Li Qing was silent for a moment and said, "We can't protect her alone." "Yes." Wu Rong replied, "That's great. Su Li said that Dazhuang and others are in front of us. Let's catch up and change the route together." Okay. 10 days later, Su Li woke up slowly, but what she saw was not the familiar camp, but the roof of a wooden house. She lay still and ran the Ghost Valley meditation direction automatically. She had almost healed the recoil injury caused by the bombardment of the giant corpse that day. The injury had been delayed for 10 days, but it did not worsen under her extremely strong physical recovery ability. "Su Li, you finally wake up." At this time, Li Qing came from outside the door with a surprised face. At this moment, she had changed into an ordinary costume and hid her pneuma. On the surface, she only looked like a warrior of the 4th or 5th level. Su Li had a plan in her mind and asked, "Where is this place?" Li Qing put a bowl of steaming broth on Su Li's bed, sat down and said, "Have you heard of Qianxing Camp?" Su Li shook her head. Except for the news she heard from Li Qing and others, she knew nothing else about Chimo Circle. Li Qing smiled and said, "It is not so mysterious. Qianxing is the large camp you asked me about a few days ago. In this circle, there are dead zones raging. In order to survive, our human clan will naturally produce large human settlements. There are countless large camps in the whole Chimo Circle, but only 1,000 are guarded by strong people. These 1,000 camps of strong people are called Qianxing. This is a place called Ma Camp." When Li Qing said this, her tone became a little low. "We were delayed on the road for 6 or 7 days. The survivors were dead and dressed up. Finally, only the young people insisted to come here. The camp guards saw that we were not weak, so they all let us go. This is a temporary residence for those who have not yet been verified." Su Li's eyes flashed and she asked, "Verification of ability?" Li Qing nodded and said in a deep voice, "Yes, large camps will not keep idle people. You will be assigned to work according to your ability. Otherwise, how can you support the operation of the camp?" Speaking of this, Li Qing smiled again. "After your injury is healed, you may even be able to compete for the deputy head of the camp." The latest chapter of The Poisonous Wife, the full text of The Poisonous Wife, the download of The Poisonous Wife, The Poisonous Wife, For the convenience of reading next time, you can click Collection below to record this time, Chapter 640. You can read it next time when you open the bookshelf. If you like The Poisonous Wife, please recommend this book to your friends, QQ, blog, WeChat, etc. Thank you for your support. Chapter 641. You can search for Poisonous Wife in Baidu. You can search for the latest chapter. Deputy Leader? Suli shook her head and laughed. Why do I want that? Your injury should not be healed. Go to heal your injury early. Well, there are not many rules in Qianqing camp. We can live here for a month. If we delay any longer, we will be driven out. Li Qing reminded, and Suli nodded to show that she understood. Time flew, and half a month passed. During this half-month, Suli spent 80% of her time on healing. She knew very well that the crisis had not been resolved. The trouble was not the giant corpse, but the small corpse monster lying in the mouth of the giant corpse. That was the real reason why she chose to escape. Although she was in one of the famous Qianqing camp at this time, she could not put her life in the hands of others. Only by being strong could she be confident. Perhaps because of the frequent use of Ghost Valley meditation direction and the special rules of Qimo Circle, she had new insights and breakthroughs in Ghost Valley meditation direction, which had been practiced to the highest realm during the healing. If the previous Ghost Valley meditation direction could only be regarded as a low-level holy method, now the grade of Ghost Valley meditation direction had reached the top level, and it could barely keep up with Su Li's combat power. Thanks to it, Su Li's healing speed had been greatly improved. In the first 10 days before the breakthrough, Su Li could only recover 20% of her cultivation with all her strength. In just 5 days after the breakthrough, Su Li directly recovered 80% of her injury. Only some internal injuries needed time to be resolved, and they did not affect her combat power. But the evil ghost had not recovered yet. Su Li sat in front of the house with a veil, watching people coming and going. Her eyes narrowed slightly. She needed a lot of evil souls to replenish the evil ghost, but in Qimo Circle it seemed that there was no such thing. At least, the evil ghost that had just been remolded was still hiding in the shadow weekly, and did not show any desire to eat. Without the help of the body of evil ghost, she lost the divine thunder of the 5 elements. If she did not use extraordinary means, her strength was at most between an ordinary junior emperor and a strong junior emperor. This was not the state she wanted. Since the evil ghost could not be recovered for the time being, Su Li turned her attention to other means that could be improved. First was the destruction sword intent. After comprehending Yi Chei's notes, her understanding of the way of the sword had reached perfection. The next realm would be the legendary sword domain realm, where the swordless was better than the swordless. There was no shortcut. She could only rely on herself to explore. She could vaguely predict that it would take at least 10,000 years to break through this realm, which was too far away. On the other hand, even though the damage of the sword Dao was still extremely terrifying before she attained the sword domain realm, she lacked a flying sword that could carry her strength. Otherwise, her might would be greatly reduced. This method was not feasible. The Sky Prohibition and the Ghost Prohibition were strange and ever-changing. They were both very useful, but their limitations were also very obvious. They were not very lethal, and their speed was too slow. She could easily fall into a passive position. After thinking about it, Su Li found that only the supernatural swordsmanship and Suiyu tactics could help her make a breakthrough. After absorbing the pneuma of the Black Lotus she picked up in the Dead region that day, although the Black Lotus had changed, it still needed a lot of stones to nurture the supernatural power. Fortunately, it was easy for her to absorb, and there was almost no obstacle. As long as there were enough stones, she could soon awaken the supernatural power. Since she took risks to break through to the second hurdle of Suiyu tactics, She had been staying at the peak of the second hurdle for years. She needed an opportunity to break through to the third hurdle. If the first elder of the Ling family was right, she could try it in the next few days. Thinking of this, Su Li summoned Li Qing and others who had been waiting for them for several days, and went to the entrance of the department to check their strength. The guard at the entrance seemed to have been waiting for them for a long time. When he saw Li Qing coming first, he was in awe. Then he glanced at Su Li and others and said, "I'm not busy today. You and your subordinates come with me." Li Qing saw that he seemed to misunderstand and was about to explain, but was stopped by Su Li. Li Qing had to give up and followed in, while transmitting the sound to Su Li. The ordinary people in the camp have entered the camp a few days ago. They have no strength and can only stay in the temporary residence for half a month at most. Su Li nodded and saw the occasional disappointment and relaxation on Li Qing's face. The two contradictory emotions mixed together and became incomprehensible complexity. She didn't understand why Li Qing insisted and what it meant to give up at this moment. Everyone had their own sufferings, and there was no need to understand everything. Li Qing's strength as a warrior of the 7th level was obvious, and Li Dazhuang, Wu Rong and others were at least warriors of the 6th level. Su Li also showed the strength of the 6th level at this moment. Such a team of warriors was the most popular in large camps, so they just went through the process casually and were allowed to enter the camp and become members of the hemp camp. Not long after, they entered the gate of the camp. The sky was still bright, so they could see the whole view of the camp. The whole hemp camp was like a mountain city, with a flat brick avenue nearly 40 or 50 degrees vertical in the middle. On both sides of the avenue, there were countless large and small houses distributed in a trapezoid shape. The closer to the top of the mountain, the higher the houses were. The overall architectural style was grayish-yellow, revealing a strong sense of simplicity. It was dusk at this moment. Su Li stood at the bottom of the avenue and looked up to see that the crowds of warriors on the avenue were still bustling and very prosperous. She held a brass round plate, on which the two words, Su Li, had just been engraved and was still a little hot. On the back, there was an ancient character, Ma, and the unique logo of the Qianqing camp. This was the symbol of warriors of the hemp camp. Li Qing's identity round plate was silver, which looked more noble. Wu Rong leaned on Li Qing and touched the silver round plate with envy. She couldn't bear to put it down and said, "When can I also break through to the 7th level? The silver plate is so beautiful." Li Qing couldn't help but laugh and said, "In this large camp, warriors of the 7th level can only be regarded as upper middle level. You have a good talent and I believe that you can break through soon. The identity round plate is just the appearance, just like Su Li. You should be careful when you walk in the camp. You can't offend people everywhere like before, or I can't protect you." "I know." Wu Rong stuck out her tongue and then peeped at Su Li. She witnessed that the giant corpse was punched away, so her mentality naturally changed. Although Li Qing didn't finish his words, she had understood the meaning. If she wanted to survive in the large camp, she must firmly hold on to Su Li. "What are you talking about?" Li Dazhuang was confused. Dai Hechuan glanced at the sky and scratched his head. "It's getting late. Should we find a place to live? There is a reception area for warriors in the large camp. We can get a place for free with our strength." Li Qing obviously knew the layout of the Qianqing camp very well. After looking around, he called everyone to join the crowd. At the same time, in the gray building at the highest point of the whole mountain city, the heavy door was slowly pushed open. A middle-aged warrior, who was travel-worn and vigorous, hurried in and put a diamond-shaped crystal shining with red light on the table with a dignified look. The slightly fat old man sitting at the table immediately raised his head and frowned. He slowly picked up the crystal and his old face changed for a moment. He couldn't help but ask in a low voice, "Is it true?" "It's true." The middle-aged warrior's voice was cold and solemn, and his eyes were a little heavy. This was just sent by the scouts in the front. In order to test the diamond-shaped crystal, we lost several good warriors. The situation I worried about most still happened. The slightly fat old man sighed and grasped the diamond-shaped crystal in his hand. He walked to the floor-to-ceiling glass window and watched the lights of the whole mountain city gradually lit up. He suddenly said, 50 years ago the Li camp was overturned overnight, as if it happened yesterday. Li Hong, what do you think? When the middle-aged warrior heard the name Li Hong, he was silent for a long time, and then said in a hoarse voice, Chief, I haven't used this name for many years. The slightly fat old man sighed heavily again. It's just 50 years. In fact, you can't blame your father for the death of your sister. He has tried his best. The dead are gone. Even if you abandon the past, can you get over it, the barrier in your heart? Li Hong's eyes were slightly red and he couldn't speak. We are warriors, not gods. The old man's eyes were complicated as he stared at the pitch-black night sky. Not every disaster can be predicted. When your father's camp suffered a disaster that year, no one could react in time. Even His Highness Realm Lord was a step too late. It was also because of that disaster that we found out that there are terrifying monsters like corpse spirits in the dead zone, and we have a way to prevent them. The intelligence of corpse spirits is not inferior to our human race, and they are even more cunning. Compared to corpse monsters, they are more advanced creatures, and they dominate everything in the dead zone. Although I don't understand the reason why the corpse spirits targeted your camp, but... The old man lowered his head and looked at the crystal in his hand. This time, it's our turn. Li Hong's eyes were instantly filled with hatred, and he said in a hoarse voice, This time, I won't let the tragedy repeat itself. Ha ha! The old man turned around and laughed heartily. Although your strength is not bad, it is still a corpse spirit after all. Even if the fish dies, it doesn't necessarily break the net. This is the first time the Realm Lord's diamond-shaped crystal has reacted. His Highness Realm Lord will not just stand by and watch, but we also need to be prepared. Li Hong took a deep breath and nodded his head. At this moment the door was pushed open again. A young man who looked a little unreliable walked in with his legs splayed out. He had a smile on his face. Old Ma, I've already contacted the Zhou barracks and the Wang barracks. The two closest camps to us, Zhou Barracks and Wang Barracks, will send warriors over tomorrow. They're all level 8 martial kings. The young man made a cross gesture, and then he saw Li Hong, and immediately came up to him with a smile. Hey, isn't this our King Hongwu? Why are your eyes red? Old man, did you bully Uncle Hong? The old man was about to praise the young man, but when he heard what the young man said, his old face immediately collapsed, and he opened his mouth to scold. Go to hell. Go back to your mother and cultivate. The young man looked hurt, and he said in a sad voice, Old man, you burn the bridge after crossing the river, and throw it away after using it. People's hearts are not what they used to be in the past. The old man was immediately annoyed, and he picked up the inkstone on the side of the table and was about to smash it, but the young man immediately ran away, and before he left, he did not forget to say a few words. Old man, just you wait. In no time, I will also be a martial king, and I will not be weaker than anyone in that stupid mirror. The latest chapter of The Poisonous Wife, The Poisonous Wife's full-text reading address, The Poisonous Wife's download address, The Poisonous Wife's mobile reading address. For the convenience of reading next time, you can click favorite below to record this time. Chapter 641 Martial Artists Are Not Gods, to read the record, and you will see it next time you open the bookshelf. If you like The Poisonous Wife, please recommend this book to your friends, QQ, blog, WeChat, etc. Thank you for your support. Chapter 642. You can search Poisonous Wife in Baidu. Search for the latest chapter. Lousy? You are an unfilial son. The old man's furious roar caused the entire house to tremble slightly. The martial artists who were busy in the other rooms all smiled bitterly when they heard this. Well, from the leader's attitude, it seems like our family's clown young master has returned. Li Hong stood in front of the window, watching the dignified leader of Qianxing camp holding an inkstone and chasing after his son who was about to become the king of martial arts. He couldn't help showing envy and nostalgia in his eyes. In fact, he had already forgiven his father, but he couldn't forgive himself. At that time, he was knocked out by his father without any help. When he woke up, he was in hemp camp. All the familiar people were gone, including his sister, Li Qingling. Li Qing. In the reception area for warriors, the steward with a smooth face looked at the young Li Qing and then showed a big smile. Welcome, welcome to join our hemp camp. We like young and strong people like you most. There are 5 people in your team. I will arrange a detached residence for you on the peak of Mountain City. What do you think? Thank you, steward. Li Qing nodded. She couldn't help but sigh inwardly. She was once the little princess of the 1,000 City camp and had a noble status. Although she had never looked down on the martial artists who risked their lives in her own camp, she had never felt that they were anything special until she became them. The efficiency of the reception area for warriors was very high. It didn't take long for the steward to stop in front of a spacious and tall detached courtyard with Su Li and others. He handed the key to Li Qing. After Li Qing signed on the registration book, the procedure was finished. Su Li saw all this. Compared with Qing Shui's circle, which had all kinds of cultivation methods to support life, Qimo's circle was obviously more primitive. Even warriors lived with mortals in the same way. The rare experience made Su Li vaguely feel that her state of mind was improved. Maybe, if time permitted, she could try to take the risk of going to the star path again. There were exactly 5 rooms in the courtyard. Su Li still adhered to her principle and chose the most inconspicuous one. Li Qing had no choice but to let her do it. After a short rest, everyone gathered again in the middle hall. I haven't taken a hot bath for a long time. Wu Rong changed into the clean clothes provided by the hostel and stretched comfortably. Captain, the treatment of martial artists is too good. Li Qingyan looked at everyone. Except for Su Li, who was still wearing a black gauze dress and looked sick, everyone else was refreshed. She nodded gently and said, "The operation rule of the 1,000 City Battalion is a perfect circle." She repeated what her father had once told her to her team members. Warriors desperately protect ordinary people, so when we return to the camp, we naturally need to enjoy more than ordinary people. That's what we exchange with our lives. Ordinary people admire martial artists. Naturally, they would want to become martial artists as well. This way, they would be able to obtain an endless supply of martial artists' resources and maintain the peace and contentment of the entire camp. Wow! Wu Rong's eyes sparkled. Captain, you know so much. I admire you so much. Looking at Wu Rong's exaggerated expression, Li Dazhuang couldn't help but laugh out loud. Then, he was immediately rewarded with a slap on the head. With a pitiful expression, he said, "I'm already stupid enough, and you still hit me." Dai Hechuan laughed, and then he was also violently beaten by Wu Rong. The team meeting immediately became a mess. Su Li watched this scene quietly with a smile on her face. She seemed to see the leanly building a long time ago. Unfortunately, that kind of time would never return. At this moment, a figure flashed in front of her eyes. It was Li Qingyan who quietly left the main hall. Su Li thought for a while and followed her. In the sky, the moon was bright and the stars were sparse. In the place covered by the dead region, there was not a single star. Even so, Li Qingyan still liked to watch it. The starry sky at night was really beautiful. Hearing the footsteps behind her, Li Qingyan sighed and turned her head. Her eyes were bright and gentle. "Su Li, would you like to listen to my story?" Su Li smiled slightly, and her voice was rarely soft. I'd like to hear the details. Li Qingyan's life experience was very simple. She grew up with her parents. As the daughter of the leader of the Thousand City Battalion and the younger sister of the genius brother, she never knew what was sorrow until a disaster came without warning. All the beauty was lost in an instant. After I woke up, I was with many wandering warriors. It was the captain of the wandering warrior squad who saved me. Li Qingyan's tone was very light. He was determined to save more survivors in the dead region. He taught me a lot. Although my talent was not as good as my brother, it was not worse. In just 20 years, I became the same as him, from a 4th-level warrior to a 6th-level warrior. Then we met the corpse monsters. It seemed that painful memories were evoked. Li Qingyan's eyes instantly turned red. She said, I don't know where it was. I only know that there were a lot of corpse monsters. I saw so many corpse monsters for the first time. I was completely confused. I didn't even know how I escaped. In the end, I was alone again. I didn't lend a helping hand to my father at that time. I was very resistant to other Thousand City battalions. Besides, I also wanted to inherit the captain's unfulfilled wish, so I set out on the road alone again. Maybe I was lucky enough to run a small camp in 30 years. Li Qingyan smiled and said, but it was an illusion after all. As long as I met the corpse monsters, everything was broken. Fortunately, because of you, I don't have to face too much guilt. Thank you. You don't have to thank me. I was also saved by you. Su Li shook her head gently. She turned her eyes to the sporadic lights at the foot of the mountain and said calmly, you have to be mentally prepared. What? Li Qingyan was stunned. Before she spoke, Su Li said again, it is likely to repeat the same mistakes here. What? Li Qingyan's pupils suddenly shrank. Countless tragic scenes flashed in front of her. Su Li looked serious. She said, I have no evidence. But based on my feeling, the small corpse monster you met is not simple. I can still smell its faint breath on you, so I made some means to isolate its scent. But as long as it is still alive, it won't take long to expand the search. We can find this place. Li Qingyan's face turned pale. She gasped violently, how could this be? It has been 50 years. Obviously, that thing has been killed by the lord of the region. What is it? The corpse monster. Su Li raised her eyebrows. It turned out that the small corpse monster had another name. No. I must tell the leader of Ma Battalion about this. Seeing her leave, Su Li did not stop her. Li Qingyan was very smart. She was a survivor of the disaster that year. It was easy to think of the reason for finding the corpse monster. Su Li believed that she would not spill the beans and cause trouble for herself. Of course, more importantly, her injury was almost recovered, but her strength was still at a low level. She was not sure to deal with the so-called corpse monster alone, so she needed help. After all, according to Li Qingyan, it was the lord of the region who finally took action and eliminated the hidden danger. That was to say, it was Qitian. Qitian's strength was absolutely at the level of the great emperor. Before she was injured, she might be able to fight, but now her strength was too weak. Back in the room, Su Li did not continue to consolidate the improved injury. Finally, she focused all her energy on Suiyu tactic. Not long after the end of the Tianjiao battle, she had already understood the third realm of Suiyu tactic. But because she frequently walked among holy sects, she had no energy to take care of it, so the progress of her cultivation was slowed down. Now she was in a different realm, and could not go back to Qin Shui Circle for the time being. It was useless to think too much. Finally, she had time to practice. Nothing happened that night. In the morning of the next day, Su Li's door was knocked, which immediately woke her up. She got up and opened the door, only to see Li Qingyan's gloomy face outside the door. Su Li raised her eyebrows and said, You didn't see him? Li Qingyan nodded and glanced outside the door. Then she entered the room and closed the door. she sneered. Everything went well in the camp yesterday. I thought there were not so many dirty things in the camp. However, I still underestimated human nature. The captain stationed on the top of the mountain. Such an important position. I don't know how many people's important information was blocked by him. Such a person deserves to die. What did that person say? What is his strength? Su Li's tone was calm. Li Qingyan came to her in the morning. Although she didn't say it explicitly, Xia was asking for help. He hinted me to give him 10,000 jade. Jades are different from the gold currency circulated among ordinary people. They are high-level currency used by warriors for practice. I have used up all the jades in my daily practice. I can't take them out at all. Li Qingyan was very angry. I inquired about the captain. His name is Ding Zhang. He is only a warrior in the 6th level. He acts on his master's power. I see. I will go. If the head of the camp summons you later, you have to think about what to say. After Su Li finished speaking, she pushed the door and left. Li Qingyan stared at her back. Her eyes were full of gratitude. She didn't know how much Su Li's injury had recovered. But since Su Li wanted her to continue to hide her strength, she must have not recovered from her injury. It was really inappropriate to expose her. She was not a fool. Su Li was their backer. If Su Li was exposed and had an accident, all of them would be in trouble. She had already thought about how to tell the head of the Ma camp. After Su Li left the courtyard, she scanned the surroundings with her divine awareness. As expected, she sensed that someone was secretly watching her. She smiled slightly and deliberately walked to a remote dark alley. Plop, plop. After several sounds of her body hitting the ground, Su Li walked out of the alley as usual and walked to the top of the mountain. When she walked to the gate built at the top of the mountain, a middle-aged warrior with a curly beard came out to stop her. He scolded, "This is the restricted area of the Ma camp. Irrelevant people, get out!" Su Li looked at him and said calmly, "I have important information to explain to the head face to face." As soon as she said that, the middle-aged warrior immediately laughed. He looked at Su Li and said sarcastically, "How dare a weak female warrior like you say that she can get important information? Why don't you say that a sow can fly to the sky?" Ha 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 ha! All the guards burst into laughter. Su Li was still expressionless, as if she didn't hear it. She was so calm that it was creepy. What's the noise? Suddenly, a rebuke came from the top of the mountain. All the laughter stopped abruptly. The latest chapter of The Poisonous Wife: The Poisonous Wife: The Poisonous Wife: The Poisonous Wife. For the convenience of reading next time, you can click Collect below to record this time, Chapter 642. Next time you open the bookshelf, you can see it. If you like The Poisonous Wife, please recommend this book to your friends, QQ, blog, WeChat, etc. Thank you for your support. Chapter 643. You can search Poisonous Wife in Baidu. Search for the latest chapter. Su Li raised her eyebrows and saw that the person was a middle-aged man in cyan warrior suit. His pneuma was equal to that of nature's test. If she guessed right, he was the Lord of Martial Arts of this camp. Seeing that it was the Lord of Martial Arts who asked in person, the middle-aged man immediately opened the door. "Ding Zhang greets you, Lord." Li Hong glanced at Su Li in the door and frowned. "What's the matter?" Ding Zhang didn't dare to tell the truth and said, "Lord, there is a weak female warrior who comes to make trouble. We are going to drive her away. She is so thin that she can be blown away by a gust of wind." Li Hong didn't want to wait for Ding Zhang's explanation. When he was about to leave, a voice suddenly came from the awareness sea. "You're leaving? No wonder there are people like Ding Zhang." Li Hong stopped abruptly as if he had stepped on Ding Zhang's heart. He turned around and strode toward the door. Ding Zhang suddenly panicked. "Lord, you are busy. Why do you waste your energy on such a weak person? Li Hong looked at him and sneered. You call a warrior of the 7th level weak? Who are you? Ding Zhang was stunned. A warrior of the 7th level? That bean sprout? He looked like a warrior of the 3rd or 4th level. Li Hong walked to Su Li and asked in a gentle tone, What are you doing here? Su Li glanced at Ding Zhang, whose face was pale, and said with a chuckle, In fact, it is not me who is in trouble, but our captain. She came here last night and was also stopped and asked for 10,000 jade. Ding Zhang's face turned pale and he said angrily, You are slandering me. When did I do this kind of thing? You are slandering me. Su Li didn't look at him. She just stared at Li Hong and continued, The witnesses are in the dark alley not far from the accommodation of the warriors. They should not wake up. With your power, I believe you can find them soon. Hearing this, Li Hong took a deep look at Ding Zhang, who was completely panicked. He immediately turned his head and said, Let's go in and talk. Someone will deal with Ding Zhang. Su Li nodded and followed Li Hong into the gate. Ding Zhang's eyes were lifeless as he slumped to the ground. The architectural style of Qimo Circle was quite different from that of Qinshui Circle. Most of them were ordinary attics instead of halls. Even the head of Hemp Camp lived in such a place. Su Li followed Li Hong and looked all the way. Suddenly, she raised her head and stared at his side face. She didn't notice it before, but now she saw the outline of his face at a close distance. What's your name? Li Hong was speechless. He had never seen such a disrespectful female cultivator. She clearly knew that he was a martial king, yet she did not show any respect. However, he was not a vain person, so he replied, Li Hong. Su Li narrowed her eyes and transmitted the sound in silence. Li of Li Camp? Thud. Li Hong stopped for a moment. Then he took Su Li to his study and slammed the door. He grasped Su Li's shoulder tightly and looked nervous. Are you a survivor of that year? Su Li gently pushed his hand away and turned around to look at the study. She said, I was indeed rescued from the dead region, but not from your Li camp. Li Hong was suddenly disappointed. He was absent-minded and didn't notice why Su Li, who was only a warrior of the 7th level, could push his hand away. He was a martial king anyway. After taking a deep breath, he regained his usual calmness and asked, What information do you need to say here? Su Li looked calm and spat out 2 words, Corpse essence. Li Hong was nervous again. You met each other? Can you come back alive? Of course, there are some who didn't come here alive. Su Li perfunctorily said. Li Hong didn't hesitate and said directly, I will take you to see the head. Su Li shook her head and said, I said before that I just came to see if I could come in on behalf of our head. I don't know much. Then take me to see your head. Li Hong frowned. No one dares to stop him as long as I am here. Su Li suddenly smiled and said meaningfully, You are very lucky today. Li Hong's heartbeat accelerated slightly. His identity was exposed by Su Li before. He always felt that every word she said had a hidden meaning. What do you want to say? Follow me and you will know. Su Li turned around and left. Li Hong took a light breath and followed her. The speed of Ma Ying was very fast. When Su Li came to the gate again, Ding Zhang was already out of sight. After a while, the courtyard of Li Qing and others was in sight. Su Li didn't stop, but Li Hong's heartbeat was getting faster and faster. He was afraid that his guess was wrong and that he would face another disappointment. The sound of Su Li opening the door immediately made Li Qing come out of the room. Seeing that there was another person besides Su Li, she didn't look at him but directly came over and said happily, Did you succeed? Su Li glanced at Li Hong, who had become a statue, and nodded with a smile. He is the martial king of this camp. Great. Martial King University. Li Qing showed a relieved smile. She turned around and was about to greet Li Hong respectfully. But when she saw the latter's face, the latter half of the sentence stopped abruptly. She just stared at Li Hong's face blankly, and her eyes gradually turned red. Although this face was no longer high-spirited and full of vicissitudes, and although a lot of beard covered his face, she still recognized him at a glance. Is it you? I'm not dreaming, right? Li Qing's voice trembled. Li Hong resisted the surge of his heart, hugged Li Qing without saying anything and buried her in his chest. Only in this way could he feel the reality at this moment. Wu Rong and others came out and saw this scene. They were all at a loss. What's wrong with the captain? She couldn't help but run to Su Li and whispered. Su Li shook her head and said, "Let's leave first and let them talk alone." Wu Rong also felt that it was inappropriate to watch at this moment, so she took Li Dazhuang and Dai Hechuan back to the room. Su Li also returned to her room. With Li Hong's protection, Li Qing could deal with the following things alone. She didn't need to show up. A moment later, Li Hong's face was full of smiles as he tightly held Li Qing's hand. On the way to the leader's study, all the martial artists passing by were surprised to see him. How come he, who usually didn't smile, was smiling like a fool today? Qingling, you have suffered these years. Li Hong's words became much lighter than before when he met his family members. When your teammate Su Li saw me, she should recognize me at a glance. We look very similar. Li Qingling nodded. Thanks to her, otherwise I don't know how long it would take to see you. If I knew you were still alive, I wouldn't have wandered outside for so many years. Maybe we could have reunited earlier. The name Li Qing was naturally a pseudonym. The change was also simple, just removing the word Ling. When she had no relatives in the world, it didn't matter what her name was. But since she met her brother, of course, she would restore her original name. Don't say so much. As long as we can see each other, nothing else matters. Okay. The door of the study of the chief was pushed open. The chubby elder had been waiting here for a long time. Seeing the two come in, he also showed a gratified smile. God will reward those who are willing. Li Hong. Now you won't greet people with a sour face all day, right? Li Hong scratched his head and was a little embarrassed. Uncle Ma, thank you for your care these years. Li Qingling also recognized the elder and also called him Uncle Ma. Oh, Uncle Ma, I haven't heard your voice for many years. Alright, I don't like that kind of stuff here. The chubby elder waved his hand and turned to look at Li Qingling. Qingling, it's the best that you can come back alive. Don't say anything else. I heard that you met the zombie demon? Li Qingling stopped smiling and said solemnly, Yes. It's in the northeast of Ma Camp, not far. The zombie demon was the size of a palm and looked exactly the same as ordinary small zombie monsters. It was difficult to distinguish. The chubby elder gently nodded, got up and paced slowly in the room for a moment. Then he asked, Have the martial kings of the two camps arrived? Yes. Li Qingling was surprised. Uncle Ma, you have already received the news. I know a little, but I don't know the specific direction. Qingling, your information is very timely. The chubby elder pondered for a moment before the bead in his hand suddenly stopped spinning. Where did that kid Jin Tian go? Let him make another trip to the Divine Hall and inform Lord Realm Lord. To the Divine Hall. Li Hong's expression suddenly changed. That's too far. Even if Jin Tian has the 1,000 li divine travel goo, it will take him half a month to go back and forth. Let him go immediately. The chubby elder had a resolute expression. We need to prepare for the worst. Who knows if an accident will happen? Li Hong's heart sank. He immediately said, I know, I will go find him now. Li Qingling blinked her eyes, not understanding what was going on. They were both Thousand City Camp, but Li Camp's history was too short compared to Ma Camp, only a few hundred years. Just now she heard Big Brother say that Ma Camp's history could be traced back to at least 3,000 years ago, that is to say, Uncle Ma was at least 3,000 years old in Chiemo domain. He was absolutely an ancient existence. However, in her eyes, there was no difference between Uncle Ma and an ordinary old man. Li Hong was soon busy, and Li Qingling found that she couldn't help him at all. She could only return to her residence first, and move in with her brother after the crisis. The door of Su Li's room was closed. She didn't want to disturb her brother, so she summoned Wu Rong and others and told them about her life experience. Everyone was shocked. It turned out that their captain, who had been wandering outside with them for decades, used to be a princess of Thousand City Camp. Wow. Your brother is the king of martial arts, and he knows the leader of Ma Camp. We have another big backer. Wu Rong's eyes were shining. Li Dezhuang scratched his head and wondered, what do you mean? He couldn't figure it out, but it didn't affect his silly smile. The captain recognized him as her sworn brother, which meant that he suddenly had another sworn brother, the king of martial arts. It was so exciting. The day passed in the joy of reunion. On this day, Ma Camp was still peaceful and happy, without any signs of danger. But Li Qingling always felt that it was the calm before the storm, which was suffocating. The latest chapter of Poisonous Wife, the full text of Poisonous Wife, the download address of Poisonous Wife, the Poisonous Wife on her mobile phone. For the convenience of reading next time, you can click Collection below to record this time, Chapter 643. You can see it next time when you open the bookshelf. If you like Poisonous Wife, please recommend this book to your friends, QQ, blog, WeChat, etc. Thank you for your support. Chapter 644. You can search Poisonous Wife in Baidu. Search for the latest chapter. It was night and it was as cold as water. Her brother, Li Hong, was still busy and came to find her. As the right-hand man of Uncle Ma, he had too many arrangements to make. She sat on the steps and waited quietly. After a while, Wu Rong opened the door and sat beside Li Qingling. She was not happy like she was in the daytime, but worried and scared. Captain, actually, we haven't gotten rid of the crisis yet, right? Li Qingling sighed and held Wu Rong in her arms. Don't worry. There are so many strong people guarding Ma Camp. We can definitely get through it. Wu Rong nodded and closed her eyes. She was very sad. Although she was usually crazy and heartless, she knew clearly in her heart. Even the martial kings of Ma Camp were small in front of the giant corpse they met in the camp that day. According to the captain, it was not the giant corpse that was really powerful, but the small corpse monster hanging in the mouth of the giant corpse. In silence, she opened her eyes and glanced at the closed door of Su Li's room. Perhaps there was a glimmer of hope only when she recovered from her injury. What? Let me go to the Immortal Hall? Is the old man crazy? Ma Jintian was so scared that the steamed bun in his mouth fell to the ground. He swore, 1/2 a month. 1/2 a month. Maybe when I come back, my house will be stolen. I won't go. Li Hong said helplessly, this is your father's order. You have to go. Ma Jintian covered his ears and shrank back to the bed. He said shamelessly, I didn't hear it. Damn it. Ma Camp can't live without me. How can I go? You have to go. The chubby old man walked over with a serious expression. If no one personally notifies the Realm Lord, no one knows if there will be an accident. Don't worry, even if the corpse spirits attack, this old man can still hold on for 1/2 a month. You should leave immediately and return as soon as possible. Ma Jintian looked gloomy and said nothing. He knew that the old man was always cautious and had a lot of trump cards. But after all, it was the horrible ghoul that completely destroyed the Qianqing camp in one night. Precisely because the corpse essence is full of variables, if you don't leave this time, the deaths of everyone in Ma Camp will be on your head. The chubby old man emphasized. Ma Jintian's heart trembled. He stood up and waved his hand. Get out? I'll go, okay? Smelly old man, you only know how to threaten your own son every day. You don't even know if I'm your biological son. The chubby old man was about to fly into a rage when Li Hong saw this and quickly pulled him out of the room and closed the door. Ma Jintian changed his clothes, and his carefree look disappeared instantly. He might lose everything this time, but he had no choice but to go. He touched his ankle and took out a black goo worm, jumping in his hand. Goo immortal traveling insect. Goo immortal traveling insect, weren't you with Chu Qingning? Why are you with me? So annoying. After 10 minutes, a cyan figure quickly disappeared from the secret exit of the camp, leaving behind a blur that was hard to see, disappearing into the southern horizon. When the chubby elder saw this scene from the top floor, he secretly heaved a sigh of relief. He asked Ma Jintian to go out for a reason. If Ma Jintian really couldn't hold on, at least, Uncle Ma. Suddenly, Li Hong's figure appeared behind him, and his voice was heavy and difficult. The sun is gone. The chubby elder's heart skipped a beat. He hurriedly walked to the window and looked at the dark sky outside. He couldn't hide his seriousness. The corpse essence came. Ma Jintian just left, which meant that he had to hold on for half a month to have a chance to survive. He suddenly sped up his words. How about the rune matrix? It was just completed yesterday and hasn't been tested yet. Li Hong looked worried. The chubby elder waved his hand. It's too late. Use it directly. Let the rune masters continue to prepare the next rune matrix. The level can be lowered, but it must be at least level 7. Let all the kings of martial arts come to the war building. I will wait for them there. Understood. Li Hong immediately went to deliver the order. When he walked to the gate, he saw his sister Li Qingling waiting there anxiously. He frowned and said, Why don't you wait at your residence? What are you doing here? The disaster is coming, isn't it? Li Qingling looked a little nervous, but she was very calm. We need to delay time. Is there anything I can do to help? I have learned some runes these years. It's easy for me to set up level 7 rune matrix. Li Hong's eyes suddenly lit up. I will take you to the rune department. Although he didn't know why Li Qingling knew to delay time, his sister's knowledge of runes really helped a lot. There were not many rune masters in the Ma Ying camp. Besides, many rune masters didn't have time to practice for the level 8 matrix. They were extremely tired. His sister's appearance might give them a moment of respite. After Li Qingling was summoned, only Wu Rong and Li Dazhuang were left in the courtyard. The color of Tianbian is exactly the same as before. Li Dazhuang looked up and stared blankly. He recalled the frightening morning in his mind. There are countless powerhouses in the Qianqing camp. They should be able to resist it, right? Who knows? Dai Hechuan peeled the snacks in his hand and said indifferently, Anyway, we can't help anything with our little strength. We will die if we go there. We are too weak. Wu Rong sighed. At this moment, the door on the left was suddenly pushed open. Su Li came out and saw 3 people sitting on the step. She smiled. I have a request. Are you willing to help me? Wu Rong shivered and immediately stood up. Su Li, are you out of practice? How is your injury? Su Li shook her head, almost. I need you to delay time. We? Wu Rong pointed at her nose with great doubts in her eyes. We can also delay time? Su Li smiled faintly. Can you do it according to the arrangement I said? Of course. Wu Rong patted her chest with infinite enthusiasm in her eyes. I will go through fire and water without hesitation. Li Dazhuang scratched his head and still didn't quite understand. Dai Hechuan was thoughtful. He had long suspected that it was not a coincidence that the captain and the other 2 could escape from the giant corpse last time. Seeing Wu Rong's reaction, the answer was obvious. Then, come and hold my hand. After Su Li said that, Wu Rong was the first to hold Su Li's outstretched hand. The next moment, she felt that there was an extra voice in her mind. This voice will guide you what to do. Dazhuang, you also come. Ah? Oh. Li Dazhuang went forward in a daze. Although he didn't understand, he just had to do as she said. Dai Hechuan also consciously went forward to receive a ghost possession. These ghosts were naturally provided by the first elder of the Ling family. They were low-level ghosts without intelligence. After Su Li transmitted instructions to them, they could be used as carrier runes in disguise. The three received the task and soon went out separately. Su Li returned to the room and hurried to make a breakthrough. It took a lot of time to make the ghost restriction. This was the only killing matrix in the restriction of ghosts. It took her a lot of time to carve all the forbidden patterns and distribute them to the three ghosts. This ghost restriction was called Red Lotus of Purgatory. Although it was not as good as the trump card used by Qing Shui Nun in the Ziyun house, it was not much worse. Moreover, it didn't cost anyone's life. At most, the rune matrix could not bear the burden and would be destroyed. Wu Rong walked on the edge of the mountain city and carefully inserted the forbidden patterns into the ground according to the instructions of the voice in her mind. She found that others seemed to be unable to see the flickering of the forbidden patterns. At most, they would think that her behavior was a little strange, which made her relax a little. As she walked, she came to the city gate. At this moment, the city gate was full of warriors. They surrounded the city gate tightly. She managed to squeeze to the designated place to bury the forbidden patterns. When she straightened up and looked up, she found that the sky was covered with dark clouds. It was so dark that it seemed that she could reach it with her hands. Everyone looked serious. The oppressive atmosphere made Wu Rong a little breathless. There is one last place. Wu Rong was squeezed by the warriors. She was cursed in a low voice. She apologized again and again. Finally, she came to the last place. Unexpectedly, she was under the nose of a martial king in red. She swallowed her saliva and braced herself to move forward. She pretended to ask, "Lord, here, what happened?" As she asked, she didn't forget to bury the last piece of forbidden pattern in the ground. Although the martial king in red heard the voice, he did not see it. His burning eyes stared at the dark clouds. He said coldly, "Ma Ying is in great danger. This place is dangerous. It is not a place for a rank 6 warrior like you. You can either retreat to that group of warriors as a backup or go to the logistics department to help." Although his voice was cold, Wu Rong felt warm in her heart. Coincidentally, she saw that the forbidden pattern had completely merged into the ground. She nodded and was about to turn around and leave. Suddenly, boom! The earth shook and the mountains shook. The ordinary people who were still sleeping in the morning were immediately awakened by this loud bang. The entire Ma Ying fell into chaos in the blink of an eye. Wu Rong's body became unstable and she almost fell. However, she did not care about herself. She quickly looked at the place where she had planted the forbidden pattern. Only when she found that it had not been shaken out did she feel a little relieved. With her vision, she naturally could not understand that the place where she had planted the forbidden pattern was not a real thing. The martial king in red had already jumped onto the city wall to watch. Naturally, he did not see her abnormal behavior. Wu Rong immediately rushed into the group of warriors and went back to report to Su Li. There were more than 20 people on the city wall. Seeing the martial king in red coming up, the others looked at him and nodded to greet him. The martial king in red walked to the slightly fat old man standing on the city wall tower. He slightly lowered his head and asked, "Leader Ma, how is the situation?" "Not bad." The slightly fat old man stared at the outline of the giant corpse that was slowly appearing in the distance. There are only signs of one giant corpse. Compared with Li Ying, there are 2 less. At this moment, there are 20 martial kings guarding the camp, including you, which is 12 more than Li Ying. Even if we can't kill the giant corpse, we can restrain it. The rune matrix of the 8th level has been completed. You are free to form teams and take turns to restrain the giant corpse. Leave enough time to rest and maintain your strength. Hearing this, the martial king in red could not help but show admiration. "Leader Ma, you are really thoughtful. Why don't you form a group of 5? We are the foreign martial kings who came to help, so there are 5 of us. As soon as the martial king in red finished speaking, he saw a tall and thin warrior dressed like a scout rushing over and shouting, "Leader, we found another giant corpse. The second one." The latest chapter of The Poisonous Wife, the full text of The Poisonous Wife, the download of The Poisonous Wife, The Poisonous Wife. For the convenience of reading next time, you can click Collect below to record this time, Chapter 644. Next time you open the bookshelf, you can see it. If you like The Poisonous Wife, please recommend this book to your friends, QQ, blog, WeChat, etc. Thank you for your support. Chapter 645. You can search for Poison Wife on Baidu. Search for the latest chapter. The pupils of the slightly plump old man shrank. He quickly snatched the report from the scout's hands. After taking a closer look, he turned his head to look at the red-clothed martial king and said solemnly, "It looks like your rest time will be halved." "It's fine." The red-clothed martial king did not dare to delay any longer. "I'll make the arrangements now." The slightly plump old man nodded. His eyes flashed with deep worry. Even though he had experienced countless trials and tribulations in the past 3,000 years, this was the first time he was facing a corpse spirit. Could he really protect Maing? No matter what the people of this era did, they were very fast. In less than half a cup of tea's time, 10 martial kings split into 2 teams. They turned into streams of light and flew in the direction of the 2 giant corpses. Their mission was to slow down the giant corpses' progress towards Maing. It would be best if they could repel them. Among the first batch of martial kings, the red-clothed martial king was among them. Furthermore, he was the captain of the first team. The other 4 martial kings were personally trained by him, so they naturally had a tacit understanding of each other. When we come into contact with the giant corpses later, I'll take the lead and test it out. You guys go to the side and see if there are any dangers around. The red-clothed martial king transmitted his voice. The 4 of them nodded in unison, calm and cautious. Soon, the 5 of them rushed into the black mist. The huge silhouette of the giant corpse appeared in front of them. The red-clothed martial king narrowed his eyes, and a blood-colored spear appeared in his hand. He immediately accelerated and turned into a sanguine light that accurately pierced the black mark on the giant corpse's chest. The red-clothed martial king was not Wu Rong. His speed was extremely fast. The clumsy giant corpse was naturally unable to block it. The sanguine light instantly pierced the black mark. Good. When the 4 martial kings saw this scene, they were pleasantly surprised. Only the red-clothed martial king, who was alone in the sanguine light, had a sudden change in expression. Without saying a word, he retreated to the side of the 4. The hand that held the spear opened up and was covered in blood. The pupils of the 4 of them shrank. They knew how powerful their captain was, but he was actually injured in the first strike? It's different. The red-clothed martial king looked at the clumsy giant corpse in the distance and saw the white dot on the black mark. His tone became complicated. The giant corpse that appeared is different from Li Ying's. It's too hard. I suspect that the black mark is not a death spot at all. At this point, the red-clothed martial king's tone sank. It will be much more difficult to restrain it than we imagined. Let's send the news first. The news quickly reached the slightly fat old man's ears. Did the weakness change? The chubby old man pondered for a moment. It's fine. Since there are only giant corpses and no corpse spirits, we still have time. While the martial kings were restraining them, they might as well try to find new weaknesses in these giant corpses. Xiao Hong, Li Li and Marshal Li said. Li Hong stepped forward and nodded, revealing a trace of a smile. Fortunately, although there was no test, the level 8 runic array was successfully activated. The level 7 runic array is also being prepared quickly. With the addition of Qingling, the efficiency has increased significantly. Very good. Qingling is also a good child. Go and coordinate the rotation of martial kings. Do not make any mistakes. I understand. Li Hong turned around and descended the city wall. Seeing him leave, the middle-aged martial king standing on the other side of the chubby old man could not help but snort coldly. Humph! Coward! Leader, forgive me for being blunt, but you are too partial to him. We have 11 martial kings in Ma camp. Why can't he go to the battlefield? As soon as he said this, the other 10 martial kings waiting on the wall had a change in their expressions. The slightly fat old man chuckled. His eyes were as sharp as a knife. He said slowly, I have always been fair. Li Hong has his reasons for not fighting. All of you do not have to feel that it is unfair. As for Dingang, if you are unhappy because of your younger brother's punishment, you can explain it to this old man. If you are trying to sow discord because of your selfish motives, do you know what you are doing? Dingang's expression changed slightly. He was indeed unhappy because of his brother, Dingzhang. He did not think about the consequences. The others also calmed down. Since Dingang had his reasons, they chose to believe in their leader. At this moment, Wu Rong ran all the way back to the courtyard. She saw Dai Hechuan and Li Dezhuang waiting in front of the step. She was the last one to return. Have you all arranged it? She asked. Dai Hechuan and Li Dezhuang both nodded. I heard a loud noise just now. Has the battle started in front of the city gate? Dai Hechuan looked worried. Wu Rong forced a smile. It doesn't matter. I saw many martial kings on the wall. I only saw dark clouds and didn't see the shadow of the giant corpse. That's good. Dai Hechuan nodded and turned to look at Su Li's house. I don't know how long it will take for her to come out. Wu Rong frowned and said firmly, the captain was called to help. We can't just wait. Dezhuang, He-chun, let's take turns to inquire about the news from now on. We must make sure that we can know the movement in the front line as soon as possible. Okay. Li Dezhuang smiled. We can still do such a simple thing. At the same time, outside the big tactical matrix of Qimo Circle in Jiuzhou region of Qinshui Circle, Lingli held his sword and stood aside. Suddenly, a golden flowing light appeared from the nothingness and turned into a carrier rune. Hua Yan's anxious and uneasy voice came from it. Fellow practitioner Ling, Mo comes again. Please. He suddenly opened his eyes. As the golden light flowed, his scattered black hair fluttered without wind. A dragon-shaped phantom appeared behind him. The noble and indifferent dragon eyes looked down at the big tactical matrix as if it was an ant. Open! Lingli shouted coldly, and the golden dragon's shadow blasted out with his right fist. The dragon's shadow roared to the sky, and the golden energy poured out. Boom! In an instant the world shook. The white tactical matrix was contaminated by the golden color. A little crack appeared from the center, and then the cracks spread out quickly like a spider web. Lingli saw it and punched again without saying a word. Clatter! The seal collapsed in an instant, and a human-sized hole appeared in front of him. At this moment, Qitian, who was far away in the immortal hall of Qimo Circle, suddenly opened his eyes and disappeared from the throne in the blink of an eye. Lingli suddenly felt a suffocating pressure coming to his face. Before he could avoid it, a tall red-haired man appeared in front of him and looked at him with a serious expression. Did you break the seal? Why did you call me here? Lingli had seen Qitian from a distance, so he naturally knew his identity. He nodded quickly and said, I'm Lingli. I'm invited by Lord Hua of an sect to help. I didn't expect that there was someone who could break the seal in this world, except the Grand Elder Su. Qitian nodded and smiled casually. What's the matter with the Grand Elder Su? Lingli looked slightly serious, and Qitian immediately stopped smiling. He said in a deep voice, What happened? After a while, in the main hall of an sect, when Hua Yen saw Qitian come in, she finally felt relieved and thanked Lingli repeatedly. Fortunately, she believed him once, otherwise an sect would be in danger this time. Lord Qitian, thank you. Hua Yen looked ashamed. Our Grand Elder is still missing. I just received the news that there is a new movement in the Fate Palace. If Biamo comes in person, we can't resist him at all. Only you can take charge. Qitian shook his head and said in a relaxed tone, I have heard about the Grand Elder Su from Lingli. Lord Hua doesn't need to worry too much. Since I show up, Biamo can't take advantage of it. Thank you, Lord Qitian. Hua Yen said gratefully. Then she changed the topic and talked about the battle in Xian House. In fact, the Grand Elder made a contribution last time. In just half a month, Tianyak Attic sent the news that the 50 Grand Elders of holy sects controlled by the Fate Palace had all died. The sects were in chaos and could not pose a threat to our sect, and the remaining 30 holy sects were all declared to belong to our NI sect. As soon as these words came out, even Qitian was stunned. 50 Grand Elders of holy sects, that was 50 junior emperors, not cabbages. How on earth did Su Li kill 50 junior emperors together in that battle? Moreover, it was extremely abnormal that the remaining 30 holy sects changed sides together. Su Li must have played a role in it. Otherwise, why didn't Bai Mo detonate the poisonous life insect and let those junior emperors change sides? Qitian sighed deeply, and his eyes were complicated. What on earth did the little girl do? In terms of destructive power, his ability seemed to be far inferior to hers. In addition, Qitian finally saw a glimmer of hope that Bai Mo would be defeated, and he could save the creatures of Qimo Circle. Compared with Qing Shui's circle, Qimo Circle was too small. Even if all the people of Qimo Circle were accepted, it would not have any impact. And because of the decline of Qimo Circle, the warrior's lifespan was not long. Except for him, no one lived more than 10,000 years. That was to say, except for him, no one had the mark of the natural law and would not be rejected by this circle. This was the best solution. I hope I can succeed before the destruction of Qimo Circle. Thinking of this, Qitian looked up and said to Hua Yen, during this time, I will stay at the entrance of the seal with Lingli to protect NI sect. The pressure of expulsion is much less there, but the restriction of the natural law still exists. I can only stay for a month at most, and then I have to go back to rest for a while. That's enough. Thank you for coming here. Hua Yen was slightly relieved, and her eyes flashed. Although the Grand Elder is not here, our NI sect is not powerless at the moment. If the Fate Palace attacks, I can deal with other enemies except Bai Mo. Ha ha, you are the best friend of Grand Elder Su. I naturally believe you. Qitian laughed heartily, and his figure disappeared in the hall. Lingli nodded to Hua Yen and was about to leave, but Hua Yen stopped him. Wait. Fang Yuan also went back to Tianhe sect these days. Why don't you go to see him? Ling Li's body suddenly shook, and finally left the hall silently without saying anything. This father and son are really… Hua Yen shook her head and smiled bitterly. She didn't know when this knot could be untied. Ling Li went out of the hall. After thinking for a while, he finally came to the house where Su Buwang lived. He stood outside the house and stretched out his hand to knock on the door, but he couldn't do it. After a long time, he slightly pursed his lips and sighed in his heart. He turned around and was about to leave, but he saw Su Buwang behind him, holding a basket of wine and looking at him coldly. Why are you here? Su Buwang turned his head and glanced at him. He snorted coldly and walked directly past him with the wine. You are not welcome here, you know. The latest chapter of The Poisonous Wife, the full text of The Poisonous Wife, the download of The Poisonous Wife was reading on the mobile phone, For the convenience of reading next time, you can click collection below to record this time, chapter 645. Next time you open the bookshelf, you can see it. If you like The Poisonous Wife, please recommend this book to your friends, QQ, blog, WeChat, etc. Thank you for your support. Chapter 646. You can search Poisonous Wife in Baidu. Search for the latest chapter. Hearing Su Buwang's cold words, Lingli felt bitter in his heart, but he didn't show it. He just nodded and said, "I'll go now." He turned around, but he heard a sound of something breaking through the air behind him. He thought for a while and didn't hide. Crash! The wine bottle burst directly from the top of his head, and the pieces were scattered on the ground. The wine was poured all over Lingli, and the smell of alcohol was overwhelming. "Don't think that I will forgive you if you leave Xingtian Shrine and chase me here." Su Buwang panted heavily and blushed. He shouted hysterically, "Any difficulties you have nothing to do with me. Don't come here in the future. Disgusting. Get out." Every word of Su Buwang was like a knife, stabbing into Ling Li's heart. Ling Li gently covered his chest and smiled bitterly with a pale face. His mouth was really vicious. He was really like his mother at this point. Sighing softly, Ling Li didn't look at Su Buwang again and left silently. Until his figure completely disappeared in front of the courtyard, the fierce look on Su Buwang's face disappeared instantly, and he was full of loss. He sat on the ground with the wine basket in his arms, and looked at the wine stain on the ground in front of him. He didn't know what to feel. It was Su Buwang's fault. He drove him away, but why did he feel empty in his heart? Ah! Su Buwang roared angrily. He opened the wine bottle and drank it. He didn't want to think about anything, and he was even more unwilling to forgive him. Ling Li returned to the sealed entrance of Qimo Circle. Qitian was surprised to see that he was full of alcohol, but he didn't ask much and continued to close his eyes to rest. 4 days later, in the central hall of Qimo Circle, Ma Jintian looked pale and breathless at the towering hall tower in front of him. It almost took him to cross half of Qimo Circle from Ma Ying to the hall. It should have taken him 7 days, but it only took him 4 days. Obviously, it cost a lot. After recovering some strength, Ma Jintian took out the token of Ma Ying and threw it into the groove of the hall. The next moment, the gate of the hall opened, and he immediately flashed in. What? Milord Realm went to seal the exit? When Ma Jintian heard this, his face became paler. He had no energy to go to other places. The person who received Ma Jintian was a young man in a blue martial artist's suit. He was surrounded by frost and looked gentle. "Looks like you used some extreme methods to get here as soon as possible. That's why you've lost a lot of your blood qi." After the youth said that, he took out a blood essence from his universe ring and handed it over. "Eat it." Lord Bingfeng, this, Ma Jintian looked at the blood essence in the young man's hand. It was a holy thing for replenishing qi and blood. Only martial emperors were qualified to use it. It was a strategic material. "Just eat when I tell you to." Bingfeng's smile was very warm. "It's a special time now. It doesn't matter who uses it. My speed is not as fast as yours. You should hurry up and recover, then bring me back to camp first. As for the Realm Lord, I have his divine sense. As long as he returns, I can immediately send a message to him. No need to worry." Hearing this, Ma Jintian's doubts disappeared. He took the blood essence and absorbed it without saying anything. At this moment, Ma Jintian had held on for 6 days under the attack of the zombies. The city wall was still towering, but the level 8 rune matrix had been damaged to a considerable extent. On the city wall, a group of 20 martial kings were taking the time to recover. They relied on the rune matrix to resist the 2 giant corpses in front of them. The rune matrix can't hold on for a long time. The martial king in red opened his eyes. His eyes were full of heavy exhaustion, so were the other martial kings. The plan couldn't keep up with the changes. The giant corpses were more difficult to deal with than everyone imagined. Ordinary martial kings couldn't have the strength and hardness. In order to slow down the giant corpses, they had to fight together. Therefore, they lost the time to rest. The 20 people held on for 3 days and 3 nights. Finally, they couldn't hold on anymore and returned to the city wall. Without the martial king's entanglement, the giant corpses' progress was naturally faster. Soon, they were dozens of feet away from the city wall. They didn't stop until they touched the level 8 rune matrix. The level 8 rune matrix didn't let them down. It had held on for 1 day and 1 night. Obviously, it was wishful thinking to rely on it to hold on until Ma Jintian came back. Li Hong took a deep breath and took a step forward. His eyes were clear. "Uncle Ma, let me go." The chubby old man felt pity, but he didn't stop him this time. He turned to Ding Gang and others. "Have you had a good rest? I need a team to cooperate with you." Ding Gang looked at Li Hong in astonishment and then looked at the chubby old man. The coward actually took the initiative to come forward? Seeing that Ding Gang didn't speak for a long time, the chubby old man frowned slightly. But at this time, the martial king in red stood up and said in a deep voice, "Leader Ma, do you need help? I can take action after I recover some strength." The chubby old man nodded and said solemnly, "Originally, I wanted to see if we could find a chance to deal with the 2 giant corpses by ourselves. But since the weakness has disappeared, we can't find a new weakness. Li Hong will deal with 1 giant corpse alone. The other one will be divided into 3 groups. In this way you can make time to rest." "What? Li Hong will deal with 1 giant corpse alone?" Ding Gang cried out in horror. "How is this possible? That is a giant corpse." Li Hong turned around. His gaze was like a blade, extremely dazzling. Ding Gang's body suddenly trembled and he instantly lost his voice. At this moment, he finally felt the former's strength. At this time, the senior martial king beside him sighed and privately transmitted his voice. "Ding Gang, you came late and don't know. When Li Hong was young, he was the strongest in our Ma camp, and now it has been 10 years. Li Hong, so you are the Ma camp's Saber King?" The eyes of the martial king in red flashed, and he laughed heartily. "No wonder. I have been wondering why the strongest expert of Ma camp hasn't appeared yet. Good. Today, I have the honor to fight side by side with the Saber King." Li Hong didn't say much. He gently nodded and pointed to the giant corpse on the left. "I'll leave this one to you. Try not to let it continue to destroy the rune array, and try not to get injured. Do what you can." "All right." The 20 people were quickly redistributed. 2 teams of 7 people and 1 team of 6 people. Li Hong stared at the giant corpse, his eyes filled with killing intent. A long, snow-white saber appeared in his hand. "Let's go." Boom! After a day and a night, the loud sound began to reverberate in the ears of the residents of Ma Camp. Ordinary people couldn't do anything but walk to the gate and put their hands together to pray for the warriors. In the rune camp, Li Qingling's right hand holding the rune pen trembled slightly. Her forehead was sweating and her face was pale. She hadn't rested for 4 days, but she still didn't want to stop. She didn't dare to stop. Every extra moment to carve runes meant a little more chance of survival. Some of the other rune masters in the rune camp had not rested for nearly a month and directly fainted from exhaustion. Wu Rong, Li Dazhuang and Dai Hechuan constantly shuttled back and forth in the city to ensure that Su Li could get the latest news when she woke up. At this moment, they were fighting for survival. Crack! The long saber scratched the back of the giant corpse, just like a blunt knife cutting the rotten leather. It made a harsh and unpleasant sound. Li Hong's eyes didn't change. He gently stepped on the shoulders of the giant corpse and turned over flexibly to the front of the giant corpse. He held his breath and waited. On the city wall, many inexperienced warriors were all shocked. Master Li really stopped a giant corpse by himself? Too strong. Although Lord Li is usually serious, I have never seen him fight. I really can't see it at all. Great. We can still hold on. Ding Gang leaned against the bricks of the city wall and looked at Li Hong's back. With a complicated expression, he took a deep breath and cursed in a low voice, "Bastard, you lied to me again. When we go back this time, I will throw you into the scout camp." Hearing this, many kings of martial arts smiled and relaxed for a while. Ding Gang's younger brother, Ding Zhang, was not a secret. Morale rose a lot because of Li Hong's appearance. But warriors fought with their own pneuma and blood, not with the help of heaven and earth. In a normal battle, warriors were brave. If a practitioner of the same level was close to them, he might be defeated in an instant. This was also the reason why the Qimo Circle and the Qingshui Circle could win the war when they were outnumbered. But if a monster like the giant corpse was delayed, the shortcomings of warriors would immediately show. Their means were too simple. Their endurance was too poor. After consuming too much pneuma and blood, it would take a long time to replenish it. So, just 3 days later, above the city wall, 20 kings of martial arts were lying on the ground. They were all exhausted and couldn't fight anymore. Li Hong's face was slightly pale. He stood on the top of the city wall and pressed his lips tightly. He looked at the giant corpse who was using his giant arms to destroy the rune matrix without rest. He still had the strength to fight. But if he fought with 2 giant corpses alone, it was very likely that he couldn't come back. So, it was useless to delay the battle. Uncle Ma. He took a deep breath and walked to the chubby elder. He whispered, "The rune matrix can hold on for half a day at most." The chubby elder nodded and still looked calm. Today is the 5th day. Li Hong was in a dilemma. Only he could understand Uncle Ma's words. It would take half a month for Ma Jintian to ask for help. Only 5 days had passed out of the 15 days. They still had to hold on for 10 days. The chubby elder turned his hand and took out a palm-sized stove. He looked hesitant for the first time. This thing could help the camp to hold on for 5 days. But how could they make up for the gap of 5 days? Li Hong's eyes changed slightly when he saw the stove in the elder's hand. Uncle Ma's cultivation was not high. When he was in danger that year, Uncle Ma relied on this thing to save him from the corpses. He couldn't understand the words on this thing. It must be an ancient treasure. But Uncle Ma didn't dare to use it now. It meant, even such a treasure might not be able to resist the giant corpses for a long time. Half a day seemed long, but it was extremely short under the attack of the giant corpses. More and more cracks appeared on the rune matrix. The rune matrix was about to be broken. The warriors who watched in the city gradually became desperate. The chubby elder sighed. No matter what, he had to save the camp first. He flipped his palms and made a strange gesture. If Suli were here, she would definitely see that the gesture was somewhat similar to the treasure Milky Way. But before the gesture was finished, the 2 giant corpses suddenly raised their heads and roared. 4 fists bombarded the place where the rune matrix was broken. Everyone's expression suddenly changed. Boom! The latest chapter of The Poisonous Wife, the full text of The Poisonous Wife, the download of The Poisonous Wife, The Poisonous Wife. For the convenience of reading next time, you can click Collect below to record this time, Chapter 646. You can read it next time when you open the bookshelf. If you like The Poisonous Wife, please recommend this book to your friends, QQ, blog, WeChat, etc. Thank you for your support. Chapter 647. You can search for Poisonous Wife in Baidu. Search for the latest chapter. This time, the deafening rumble was fiercer than any other time. The entire mountain city was affected. Under the recoil, the ground trembled violently. Fine cracks spread out from the mountain, and the pots and pans in the houses of the commoners were scattered all over the ground. The rune matrix was broken. Ma Ing had no means to protect himself. Panic was boiling. Roar! Ha ha! On the city wall, the iconic strange cry made Li Hong's pupils shrink. He stared at the giant mouth of the giant corpse on the left. Sure enough, a small corpse monster the size of a palm appeared in front of everyone. It arrogantly showed its sharp teeth, which was ghastly and horrible. The corpse monster, Li Hong's killing intent soared. He was about to rush out of the city wall, but the corpse monster suddenly disappeared in front of him. It turned into a shadow and rushed to the chubby elder. Oh no, its target is the leader. The face of the martial king in red changed dramatically, but his tired body couldn't keep up. Li Hong couldn't turn back to rescue the leader. Uncle Ma, retreat! At the moment of life and death, the chubby elder was tense. He didn't retreat at all. He made gestures faster, but he was still a little slower than the speed of the corpse monster. At this moment, the news finally spread to the courtyard from the mouth of Wu Rong and the other two. Bad news, Su Li, the rune matrix is broken. In the room, Su Li suddenly opened her closed eyes, and temporarily suppressed the intention of breakthrough in her eyes. She pressed her hands on the ghost matrix pattern that had been prepared on the ground. Her eyes were shining, and she said calmly, "Open for me." Buzz! The black rune appeared and broke through the void in the blink of an eye. All the forbidden patterns that had been buried before were instantly activated and turned into a big black net. On the city wall, the moment when the corpse monster was about to scratch the forehead of the chubby elder, the black rune barrier appeared behind the chubby elder without warning. It expanded in an instant and directly knocked the corpse monster away. Squeak! The corpse spirit screamed in exasperation as it scuttled back into the black mist, disappearing without a trace. The chubby elder made gestures in his hands, but he didn't intend to continue. He stared at the big black matrix that suddenly appeared above his head and didn't come to his senses for a long time. Not only him, but the entire city wall fell into a deathly silence. It seemed like a long time had passed since the corpse spirit had suffered a fatal blow, but in reality, it had only been an instant. Before anyone could react, it had already been over. The chubby old man put away the furnace and pointed at the black curtain above his head to Li Hong. He asked doubtfully, "Which rune master arranged this?" Li Hong shook his head in a daze. The rune camp being able to draw an 8th level array is already the limit. Such an array. Li Hong stared at the black runes on the light curtain. He reached out and touched it. It was cold to the touch. He scratched his head and asked in confusion, "Uncle Ma, can I touch the rune array?" The chubby old man's pupils shrank. He reached out his hand and touched the rippling barrier in front of him. He immediately fell into silence. What happened? The martial kings looked at each other in dismay. The scene just now was too thrilling. Now that everyone had come back to their senses, they felt like they had been on a roller coaster. Their hearts surged with emotions, fluctuating up and down. It doesn't seem like it. The leader of the Ma camp seems to be confused as well. Don't worry about it. Since the corpse spirit suffered a setback for the time being, let's hurry up and recover. The martial king in red leaned against the city wall and sat down, closing his eyes. Hong, go and have a rest. If it is really the thing I guessed, you don't have to worry too much for the time being. The chubby old man suddenly said with a smile, "It seems that there is a hidden expert in our camp." Li Hong was confused. What did Uncle Ma see? Could such a thin layer of black curtain really resist the attack of the giant corpse? He was deeply doubtful. But after many years of getting along, he chose to believe in the chief for once. The alert of the city gate has been lowered. Wu Rong heard the news that Dai Hechuan had just sent back. She couldn't help but look up at the sky blankly and murmured, "Was the black thing covering the camp really arranged by the three of us?" Dai Hechuan also looked up at the sky and muttered, although I don't believe it, but the fact is in front of us. Su Li took out a matrix casually and asked the three of them to arrange it. It was even more powerful than the 8th level array arranged by a group of rune masters in the rune camp. It directly lowered the alert of the city gate. Su Li, how powerful was she? Daihachuan couldn't help but think of the scene when he rescued Su Li from the Black Stone, and his scalp was numb. It seemed that he really saved a great person. You guys, what are you doing? At this time, Li Qingling pushed the door with a tired face. Captain, you are back. Wu Rong's eyes brightened and immediately ran over. Li Qingling smiled and nodded. I have done everything I can. The masters in the rune camp are all tired and fainted. I can't change the situation by myself. So, eldest brother asked me to come back first. Well, then you go and have a rest. Wu Rong looked at Li Qingling's eyes, which were as red as a rabbit's, and couldn't help but feel distressed. The rune matrix was really exhausting. They didn't sleep for 5 days and 5 nights, but they were still energetic, but the captain was so tired. Li Qingling responded and was about to go to sleep. A figure appeared in front of the courtyard door. It was Li Hong. Eldest brother. Li Qingling's eyes brightened and immediately ran over. Qingling, you are tired. Seeing Li Qingling, the seriousness on Li Hong's face immediately melted, leaving only the mellow and gentleness of an elder brother. Go and have a rest. Has the city gate been stabilized? Li Qingling saw the exhaustion and doubt in his eldest brother's eyes, and couldn't help but ask with concern. Uncle Ma said it was temporarily stabilized, but maybe only he knows when it will be unstable. Li Hong was helpless. He had just confirmed that this powerful protective black screen was indeed not arranged by any of them. The result could only be as what Uncle Ma said. There was a hidden strong person in Ma camp, but he didn't know why that person was not willing to show up until now. Where is your teammate named Su Li? Why didn't I see her? Li Hong stopped thinking and said seriously, I came here specially to thank her. Without her, we may not be able to recognize each other under the crisis of the city. What you said makes sense, but Su Li has been practicing in isolation for several days. Even I can't see her. Li Qingling explained and pointed to the closed door. I see. That's a pity. Li Hong said regretfully. He was not sure about the survival of Ma camp this time. Maybe it was very likely that he would never have a chance to thank Su Li this time. He turned back and touched Li Qingling's soft hair. His eyes were full of tenderness and concern. Take good care of yourself. I'm going to work. Yes. Don't worry, eldest brother. Li Qingling didn't say much and quietly watched her brother leave. She knew very well that her eldest brother Li Hong didn't have much confidence in the victory of the attack of the zombies. Ma camp persisted for 6 days without the arrival of the Lord of the Realm. There must be something wrong. Captain, let's go inside and talk. Wu Rong closed the courtyard door and exchanged a look with Li Dezhuang and Li Qingling. Then they pushed Li Qingling, who was puzzled, into the room. After a moment, what? This black curtain was set up by you? Li Qingling was stunned. Wu Rong scratched her head embarrassedly and said with a red face, Not really. Su Li asked us to go there. Yes. It took me several hours to set it up. Li Dezhuang said proudly with a red face. Li Qingling suddenly felt funny. Now all the warriors in Ma camp were discussing who the strong person behind the black screen was. She originally guessed that it was Su Li, but when she thought that Su Li was practicing in isolation, she didn't think much. Whoever thought that it was the 3 reckless muggles who completed the feat of saving the first camp? The most incredible thing was that Wu Rong and the other 2 didn't know the tactical matrix at all. How on earth did Su Li let them arrange the tactical matrix in Ma camp accurately? For this point, Wu Rong and the other 2 explained more mysteriously. Li Qingling was confused and finally could only helplessly smile. She turned her head to look at the closed door and whispered to herself in her heart. Be sure to catch up. Be sure to catch up. Ah! Ma Jintian's hair stood erect. He raised his head and roared. He swallowed the remaining half of the blood essence in his mouth. Suddenly, there was smoke under his feet. Like a wild horse, he left a long trace of grass and trees. There was a specially made long whip tied around his waist, and the other end of the whip was suspended in midair. Bing Feng, a young man in a blue warrior suit, changed the ice shield in front of him into the shape with the least wind pressure. He looked helpless and curious. Under such wind pressure, even he had to light up the ice shield, otherwise it would damage his image. The poisonous insect traveling for 1,000 miles is really worthy of its reputation. This speed is 50% faster than my flying speed. Bing Feng sighed and looked at the young man running on the ground. Maybe in the whole Chimo circle, only the Lord of Realm could be faster than him. Reincarnation Mirror was really a magical place. On the city wall, the chubby elder sat in the center of the city gate and was shocked to see the gray skin of the two giant corpses gradually eroded by the black color because of frequent attacks on the tactical matrix. This was not a simple tactical matrix of Qin Shui Circle, but a long-lost tactical matrix of Qin Shui Circle. Only the tactical matrix of Qin Shui Circle could turn invisible into tangible, maintain a strong protection ability, and have such a strange attack ability. Even the giant corpses were injured under the recoil. It should be known that the 21 martial kings worked hard for 5 days and 5 nights, but only left a trace on the giant corpses. But the mysterious man did it without any effort. Which old monster of Qin Shui Circle is hiding in Chimo Circle? Does the Lord of Realm know about it? The chubby elder had a lot of thoughts, but he was less worried. Anyway, the mysterious man could take action, and this tactical matrix was so powerful that the giant corpses couldn't do anything to it. It was much easier for Ma Ying to hold on until the rescue of the Immortal Hall. He didn't even need to use the only magic treasure in his hand. Thud! 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 Suddenly, the sound of flurried footsteps came from behind. The chubby elder frowned slightly and turned his head. What he saw immediately made his heart skip a beat. The latest chapter of The Poisonous Wife, the full text of The Poisonous Wife, the download of The Poisonous Wife, the Poisonous Wife. For the convenience of reading next time, you can click Collect below to record this time, Chapter 647. You can read it next time when you open the bookshelf. If you like The Poisonous Wife, please recommend this book to your friends, QQ, blog, WeChat, etc. Thank you for your support. Chapter 648. You can search for Poisonous Wife on Baidu. You can search for the latest chapter. Drip, drip. The scout's face was covered in blood as he stared at the chubby elder with a dull look in his eyes. His voice, which was usually firm and resolute, was choked with sobs. It's over, leader, it's over. What's going on? The chubby old man stood up and shouted, Wake up! Calm down. What did you see? Perhaps it was the chubby old man's calm face that comforted the scout's heart. He gradually calmed down and said with grief and indignation, We found a large number of giant corpses in the black fog. The number is no less than 20, maybe even more. In order to find out the exact number of giant corpses, all the martial artists of the scout camp died in battle. I am the only one left to report. As soon as these words came out, the entire place fell into a deathly silence. It was like a bolt from the blue, bombarding the chubby old man's heart. 20 giant corpses? He gasped and held the city wall with one hand. He suddenly turned his head and stared into the depths of the black fog. It was as if he could hear the familiar and arrogant cries of the corpse spirits in the black fog. One corpse spirit could actually command 20 giant corpses to fight? This number had far exceeded the giant corpses that Li Ying had encountered in the past. It was also far beyond the limit of what they could handle. How could this be? The red-clothed martial king's body was cold. His blood was frozen by the sudden bad news. How could there be intact eggs when the nest was overturned? If even the strong camp was destroyed by the corpse spirits, then their camp would be next. Ding Zhang's smile was uglier than crying. 20, one for each of us? Are you joking? Leader. Li Hong quickly received the news and rushed over. His face was gloomy. Is the scout's news true? The chubby old man looked at the churning black fog outside the city wall and sighed. Announce it to the whole city. This is a disaster that we can't stop. They should have the right to know. Li Hong trembled and clenched his fists. His eyes were red as he gritted his teeth and said, Uncle Ma, are you giving up? The slightly plump old man was silent. The dark green jade furnace flew out from his sleeve again and gradually rose higher. As it faced the wind, it turned into the shadow of a large bowl that covered the entire camp. The red-robed old man looked up at the jade-green and black light screen and could not help but be speechless. Even if 20 giant corpses attacked at the same time, it would still take them a long time to break through the defense, right? The chubby old man turned around and looked at Li Hong and the other martial kings. His voice was old and firm. Giving up is impossible. But who can guarantee that we can really persevere until the Realm Lord arrives? The reason I told them this is so that they can be mentally prepared. This cauldron is a remnant of a supreme treasure. Even though I don't have the power to control it, it's still tough enough. You guys should hurry up and recover your blood and chi. Don't give up. Don't give up on any chance. All the martial kings stood up and bowed their heads to the slightly hunched old man. Understood. In the courtyard, in the dim room, Su Li slowly opened her eyes, and there was a strong feeling in her eyes. When she looked up, her sight seemed to pass through the roof and see the shadow of the cyan furnace outside. A trace of the Milky Way's aura. Could it be the treasure of the Milky Way sect that was shattered? Confusion flashed in Su Li's eyes. The treasure of Tianhe's sect actually fell into the Qimo circle. However, fortunately, Ma Ying took it out. Otherwise, my breakthrough would not be smooth. At this moment, she finally understood the true meaning of Sueyu tactics. Sueyu. What was needed to practice this method was not the nimbus, but a special energy called Jade Qi, which was completely different from the nimbus. If the entire cultivation world was built on spiritual aura, then she had every reason to imagine that there was a place under the starry sky that used jade aura as the foundation for cultivation. Sueyu tactics was a practice method of another world, and its power was beyond doubt. Su Li, who had seen through its essence, could directly reach the mastery in a short time as long as she had enough jade qi, not to mention breaking through the third hurdle. The practice method was no longer difficult for her. The Qimo circle is full of death. Black lotus stones are everywhere. There is no vitality and there is no jade stone. Although the difficulty of practicing Sueyu tactics has been reduced, even the cleverest housewife can't cook without rice. Fortunately, Su Li looked at the touch of green in the sky, and a smile finally appeared in her dark and deep eyes. It's just the right time. The camp was shrouded in dark green. No one noticed that the dark green in the sky above Li Qingling's courtyard was a little bit more than the other places. The news that 20 giant corpses attacked the city quickly spread throughout the camp. After the silence, panic and madness instantly infected every corner of the camp. Even the strong warriors couldn't help but feel desperate at this moment. They would die here, and they would die faster if they went out. They had lost the right to choose life and death. Boom, 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 boom. A series of familiar deafening sounds sounded from the gate of the city. After a moment of silence in the noisy and chaotic mountain city, a large number of people rushed to the gate. Surprisingly, no one was wailing anymore. Even the martial artists didn't need to maintain order anymore. Go and cheer for the martial kings. The powerful martial kings are still fighting for us. How can we bear to make trouble for the leaders? Go to the gate, but don't make a sound. If anyone dares to disturb the thinking of the martial kings, I will be the first to kill him." The martial kings were equivalent to those in nature's test, so they had sharp ears. When they heard the conversation in the city, they were excited. Inexplicably, a force was injected into their bodies, and they became energetic again. "Let's go, brothers." The martial king in red stood up and stared at the 20 giant corpses that had appeared and were attacking the matrix. He was full of fighting intent. "Disturb them. Even if we die, we have to wait for the arrival of the Realm Lord." "Fight." Li Hong stepped forward, and his eyes flashed with killing intent. "Once you are in danger, don't be obsessed with fighting. The young lord of our camp has already rushed to the Immortal Hall in advance. In 5 days, the Realm Lord will come." "Just 5 days." Ding Gang grinned, and his eyes were fearless. "Brothers, get your weapons and kill him." The next moment, 21 figures turned into shadows and shot out at the same time. Seeing this scene, hope appeared in the eyes of the residents in the city. Only the slightly fat elder was worried at this moment. Death was inevitable. What 20 giant corpses? Li Qingling, who had just recovered a little spirit, suddenly stood up when she heard the news from Wu Rong. She immediately walked to Su Li's house and was about to knock on the door. But in the end, reason prevailed over impulse. She took a deep breath and sat down on the steps in front of Su Li's house. Her face was tense. She still remembered that before Su Li practiced in isolation, Su Li only told her the task. "Don't wake me up until the last moment." At the last moment, Li Qingling looked up at the 2 light curtains that were still firm. Her eyes flashed with firmness. She took out a pile of materials from the universe ring and began to draw runes on the ground. This was the last rune matrix that the wandering warrior taught her. It was also a rare tactical matrix that was close to being lost. Rune communication matrix. The wandering warrior only gave her 1 set of materials, and the time was limited. But she must succeed. Only in this way could she ensure that she could wake Su Li up at the last moment. Every second counted. Li Qingling took a deep breath. "I can do it, Master." Puff. The head of the giant corpse with purple skin suddenly turned back 360 degrees and opened its huge mouth. Ding Gang, who was about to attack in the rear, changed his face instantly. He barely twisted his body and stepped back a few inches. "Ah!" One arm was chewed off by the giant corpse. Ding Gang screamed, but his mind was still clear. He quickly fled into the forbidden matrix. The giant corpse opened its mouth and bit the black light curtain. After the light curtain trembled, it remained motionless. The giant corpse suddenly roared angrily and turned to rush to the nearest King Wu. Seeing the situation was not good, Li Hong could only give up helping the weaker King Wu and turn to deal with the giant corpse. Ding Gang's face was pale. He held the shoulder of the broken arm and jumped onto the city wall in pain. He transmitted the sound, "Be careful. This giant corpse is a little special." "I see." Li Hong raised his saber to block the fist of the giant corpse. He stepped back a few steps and transmitted the sound to everyone. Other people should also pay attention. The skin of this giant corpse is purple and its head can rotate at will. Don't be bitten. As soon as he said that, 2 or 3 King Wu shouted. "One of my ends here is also purple." "Me too." "Don't be impatient. The purple-skinned giant corpse is just a bit more agile. Pay attention to avoid it and continue to harass it. If you encounter any danger, escape into the light curtain." The red-clothed martial king transmitted the sound to calm everyone, but he sighed in his heart. If this goes on, they won't even last half a day. How can they talk about 6 days? The chubby old man walked to Ding Gang's side and sighed. He formed a seal with both hands and blue light balls appeared out of thin air and entered Ding Gang's bloody wound. Ding Gang immediately felt the pain ease a lot. He couldn't help but be astonished. He raised his head and couldn't help but say, "Spell? Is this a spell? Aren't you Does it matter which realm I am from now? The chubby old man tore open Dingang's clothes and bandaged his wound. He said, "Unfortunately, my skills are not good enough. If I could learn even a little bit of the method to use the Milky Way cauldron, you wouldn't be in such a passive position today." Dingang's eyes were filled with relief. "You are conscientious for Ma Camp. There is no need to investigate too much. Now I finally understand that your lifespan is really as rumored. You have lived for 3,000 years. The chubby old man smiled and said, "In Qingshui cultivation world, 3,000 years is nothing. It's because Chima world has consumed too much vitality because of the death chi. Otherwise, you can all live much longer than me." "I don't count on it." Dingang scratched his head with one hand and looked at his companions who were still fighting. He suddenly stood up and said, "As long as I can get through this disaster, I don't mind even if I die." As soon as he finished speaking, he rushed out of the light curtain without waiting for the chubby old man to speak. He resolved the crisis for the weakest martial king and joined the battle. The latest chapter of The Poisonous Wife: The Poisonous Wife. Read the full text. The Poisonous Wife download. The Poisonous Wife read on the mobile phone. For the convenience of reading next time, you can click collect below to record this time. Chapter 648 sees every second. Read the record and you can see it next time you open the bookshelf. If you like The Poisonous Wife, please recommend this book to your friends, QQ, blog, WeChat, etc. Thank you for your support. Chapter 649. You can search for Poisonous Wife on Baidu. Search for the latest chapter. Puff. Blood sprayed, Li Hong held the long saber in his hand and stared at the sharp claws of the giant corpse in front of him. He slowly stepped back and covered the bloody hole in his abdomen. As blood flowed out, his aura gradually weakened. Looking around, there were no other martial kings fighting except for him. The pressure from the 20 giant corpses was so heavy that it was suffocating. "Saber King, come back. You will die if you continue. Your death will be worthless." The red-clothed martial king, who was leaning against the wall, was now covered in blood. There were also 2 long and deep scratches on his back. Blood flowed down his back, forming a pool of dark red on the ground. Li Hong gasped and frowned. He held the long saber tightly for a moment and finally let go. He turned around and jumped onto the wall. If he hadn't reconciled with Qingling, he wouldn't be so afraid of death. The chubby old man stopped the bleeding for Li Hong. His face was also very pale. He was only at the spirit-severing realm. It was really too difficult for him to treat the injuries of these passing calamity realm martial artists. "We sacrificed 5 martial kings, but we only managed to delay them for 1 day." Dingang glanced at the remaining 15 martial kings. All of them were seriously injured. They had reached their limit. "Chief." He turned to look at the chubby old man. His voice was very soft, but it sounded very heavy in the ears of the people. "Ask the level 7 martial artists for their opinion. We need reinforcements." The chubby old man's expression didn't change. He only sighed. Obviously, he already had this plan. He slowly came to the side of the wall and faced the martial artists who had gathered inside the wall. Looking at the pairs of eyes filled with various emotions, he took a deep breath. His clear voice began to reverberate above the camp. "Martial artists of the Ma camp, as you can see, we have reached a critical moment of life and death. Our camp has 11 martial kings and 10 external martial kings. We have guarded the gate for 7 days. Now, we have lost 5 of our martial kings and the remaining 16 are all seriously injured and unable to fight anymore. I, Mada, the chief of the Ma camp, beg you, fight to the death for our homeland. Just to buy time, just to delay until the arrival of the Realm Lord, so that hundreds of thousands of people in the Ma camp can survive." The moment he said that, all the cultivators that filled the streets of the city gates were speechless. The chubby elder frowned. Just as he was about to say something, he saw a level 7 martial artist in the crowd suddenly raise his weapon and shout, "Leader! The peaceful days I've had all these years are all thanks to you. The camp is so dangerous, why did you only let us go to the battlefield now? Are you looking down on us?" "That's right." A large group of martial artists began to chime in. "Hurry up and open the city gates. We have more people and more strength. We can definitely help. Fight. Kill the giant corpse and avenge the martial kings. Kill, kill, kill. Leader, give the order. All of us are willing to fight." The chubby old man's eyes were already wet as he looked at the excited crowd below the city gate. This was the reason why he was willing to stay in Chimo Circle. In Qingshui Circle, it was impossible to have such a scene. "Alright, it's my fault." He laughed, and his laughter spread around the city wall. "After a quarter of an hour, all the level 7 martial artists will fight. Remember that your task is to interfere with the giant corpse to continue destroying the Black Curtain. Only if you are alive can you continue to interfere. Don't lose your life prematurely." "Yes." The shouts were earth-shattering. In the courtyard, Li Qingling wiped her cold sweat. Looking at the rune matrix on the ground that emitted a little brilliance, she showed a relieved smile. She succeeded. After experimenting and confirming that the rune matrix could be used, Li Qingling picked up the child matrix that had just been tested and immediately rushed out of the door. With her speed, she came to the city gate in less than a quarter of an hour and shouted, "Uncle Ma." Hearing the voice, Chief Ma Da signaled the guards to let Li Qingling go up the city wall. She immediately saw the horrible scene of 20 giant corpses outside the city. Her hand holding the child array trembled, and her eyes flashed with determination. She took a deep breath, forced herself to calm down, and quickly walked in front of Li Hong. Looking at Li Hong's blood-stained body, her eyes couldn't help but redden. "Eldest brother." Li Hong smiled and hugged Li Qingling. Although the injury on his abdomen was affected, he just grinned and continued to smile. "Eldest brother is fine. It's dangerous here. You go down first." Seeing this scene, other martial kings couldn't help but think of the people they cared about in their hearts, and their faces were a little soft. They risked their lives in the front for their loved ones. Therefore, even if everyone saw that Li Qingling was a level 7 martial artist and reached the standard of going out of the city to fight, no one said that Li Hong had paid enough. "No, I want to stay here." Li Qingling's eyes were full of stubbornness. She held the child matrix tightly in her hand. "If the city gate is really lost, it's the same wherever I am in Maing." Li Hong sighed. He knew that his sister's temperament was as stubborn as his since he was a child. No one could change her decision. "In this case, you will replace me and be responsible for passing the orders to Uncle Ma. I can concentrate on healing." Li Qingling's eyes suddenly brightened, and she nodded heavily. Only here could she pass the orders to Su Li in the first time. A quarter of an hour later, thousands of level 7 martial artists gathered in Ma-ing rushed out of the city gate. The roar of the giant corpse was earth-shattering. In the blink of an eye, blood flowed like a river outside the city. But even so, the remaining level 7 martial artists still didn't flinch. They roared and rushed up again. It was like hitting a stone with an egg. They knew that it was like hitting a stone with an egg, but they also knew that they had no way back. If they took one step back, they would be desperate and killed. Li Qingling looked at the outside of the city in a daze. Her eyes seemed to be dyed with blood. She didn't expect that she would see such a tragic scene when she just went to the city gate. Was the situation so serious that they needed to exchange lives for survival? She held the rune child matrix so tightly that it turned white. It was not the last moment. Ma Da sighed and closed his eyes. Only half of the half-month has passed. Why can't we go faster at this time? Go faster! Ma Jintian roared, but he found that his throat was hoarse. His hands were more like two bones than hand. He became a bloodless bag of bones. The poisonous insect maniac had sucked up all his flesh and blood. He couldn't get any more power. Ah, cough, cough, cough. Ma Jintian was furious. When he was roaring, his legs were broken directly. He lay on the ground and coughed up dry blood clot. Okay, young man. Bing Feng released a frost cage and wrapped Ma Jintian in it. He smiled to comfort him. You have worked hard enough. You have saved at least 2 days by squeezing yourself like this. Let me handle the rest. After one more day, you can go home. Bing Feng lifted the cage, and the blue light in his eyes soared. Then he went away instantly. 4 hours later, only a little more than 100 martial artists came back from the 1,000 martial artists who rushed out. Most of them were disabled. The smell of blood was extremely strong in the city from the crack of the city gate. More than 900 people died in exchange for 4 hours. Mada's eyes twitched. His heart was bleeding. But as a leader, he must keep calm. Qingling, the warriors of the 6th level can't go out of the city. Even if they try their best, they can't stop the giant corpses. There will no longer be any martial artists who can do anything for this city. Pass down my orders. Have everyone prepare. Once the city is breached. Mada paused for a moment before lowering his voice. Let's try to escape as much as we can. Yes. Li Qingling's eyes were wet. She turned around and immediately gave the order. She still didn't mention the existence of Su Li. She was very clear that if there was no miracle after she gave hope, her strong heart would collapse instantly. Moreover, she didn't have much confidence in Su Li in the face of the terrifying 20 giant corpses. After all, it was just a giant corpse that Su Li sent flying at that time. Under Li Qingling's order, the residents in front of the city gate all bowed to the old man on the city gate and then left. In the blink of an eye, there was no one inside the city wall. Even some guards had left. Only a few lonely people stayed here. Qingling, you should leave too. Leave with your big brother. Mada suddenly said. Li Qingling glanced at Li Hong, who was still healing, but shook her head with a smile. I want to stay here until the last moment. Mada shook his head with a bitter smile and stopped persuading her. There was no sound of fighting. On the lonely city wall, there was only the monotonous bombardment of the giant corpses. Mada just looked at it calmly. 4 hours later, the black light screen finally shattered and disappeared from the sky above the city. 20 giant corpses roared and ran wildly. They hit the turquoise light curtain and were blocked again. 4 hours. The power of the inhibition is more powerful than I thought. Mada calculated the time in his mind. This nameless forbidden pattern had bought them at least 2 days. How long could the Milky Way cauldron last? In the dull and suffocating atmosphere, time passed bit by bit. Every time the turquoise light curtain shook, it affected people's hearts. Behind them, the turquoise light curtain dropped a dense beam of light over the courtyard, which made the color of the turquoise light by more than 1 level. Only 16 hours later, crack! The harsh breaking sound rang in the ears of everyone above the city wall, but it also seemed to break Mada's heart. Mada's face was pale. Looking at the broken hole on the turquoise light curtain, he smiled bitterly and unwillingly. It can't even hold for 1 day. Is the Milky Way cauldron really a treasure? Li Qingling looked at the crack and bit her lip. Was it the last moment now? I'll lead them away. Buy time. Ding Gang suddenly stood up and left the turquoise light curtain. His voice was full of determination. My life is not more noble than anything. If I die, Li Hong, discipline my brother for me. As expected, after Ding Gang appeared, all the giant corpses diverted their attention and rushed to him. Come on, you idiots. Let's have some fun. Ding Gang laughed wildly. He narrowly dodged several sharp claws and was about to lead all the giant corpses away. However, at this moment, a strange cry came from the black fog. All the giant corpses paused and then turned to attack the turquoise light curtain. Ding Gang was instantly exasperated. Just as he was about to leave, swoosh! Lightning flashed in the black fog, and a bright light swept past Ding Gang's neck. Ding Gang's expression froze for a moment, and then, his head was sent flying into the sky by the blood and fell into the open mouth of one of the giant corpses. The latest chapter of The Poisonous Wife, The Poisonous Wife's full text, The Poisonous Wife's download, The Poisonous Wife's mobile phone. For the convenience of reading next time, you can click favorite below to record this time, chapter 649. You will see it the next time you open the bookshelf. If you like The Poisonous Wife, please recommend this book to your friends, QQ, blog, WeChat, etc. Thank you for your support. Chapter 650. You can search for Poisonous Wife on Baidu to find the latest chapter. Ding Gang! The red-clothed Martial King roared as he gathered his last bit of strength and rushed towards the giant corpse that had eaten Ding Gang. Li Hong's eyes turned sharp as he raised his saber and flew out of the city wall, slashing at the giant corpse closest to the red-clothed Martial King. Big brother! In her anxiety, Li Qingling grabbed the city wall and was about to jump down, but Ma De firmly held on to her arm. Captain! I can still hold on. The Martial Kings were infected as they fearlessly jumped out of the city wall to stop the giant corpse from destroying the city wall. However, in front of the tireless giant corpse, they were no longer as difficult to deal with as before. In a short period of time, several people were heavily injured again. Bastard, spit it out for me! The red-clothed Martial King's palm struck the back of the giant corpse's neck, but it was like a fist hitting cotton. It caved in and did not cause any damage. Come back! Li Hong struggled to maintain his position under the three giant corpses as he shouted, You still have family. Your home is not in Maing. Leave. The red-clothed Martial King's body suddenly trembled as he turned around. He saw a sharp claw piercing through the gap behind Li Hong and stabbing towards his heart. Quickly dodge! Saber King! Big brother, quickly dodge! Li Qingling shouted at the top of her lungs. Li Hong sensed something and suddenly turned his head. The sharp claw was rapidly enlarging in front of him. At this distance, he no longer had any room to turn around. Big brother! Li Qingling screamed and subconsciously wanted to crush the runic formation. At this moment, a sigh came from the sky. All the giant corpses stopped moving at this moment as bits of frost fell down along with the black mist. This is, Li Qingling's eyes widened as she looked at the sky. Her memories returned to her childhood. You wait, quickly retreat. A familiar voice entered his ears, and Li Hong recovered from his shock. He immediately turned around and brought the red-clothed Martial King, who was still in a daze, back into the broken green barrier. Someone from the Divine Hall has come. The voice came from the sky. It's definitely the legendary Martial Emperor. The Martial King standing on the city wall was stunned for a moment before he roared with joy. It was also this roar that caused all the Martial Kings to come back to their senses and jump back onto the city wall. Whoosh! Bing Fong landed on the city wall with the cage in his hand. He then gently put the cage down. A hint of exhaustion flashed through his eyes, but it quickly disappeared. That scared the hell out of me. I almost missed it. He was scared and waved his hand to dissolve the ice prison. Ma Jintian, who was too thin to be human, appeared in front of everyone. Jintian! Mada's expression changed drastically. He ran over to pick up his son, only to find that his son was only skin and bones. He was terrifyingly weak. He's fine. He'll recover after taking some supplements. You really have a good son. If it weren't for him rushing over, I wouldn't have been able to get there in time. When Mata heard this, he felt both heartache and gratified. He stood up, cupped his fists and said, "You must be the Ice Emperor, Lord Iceberg, right?" "What Ice Empress? She's just making a living in the Divine Hall." Bing Feng waved his hand, turned around and looked at the 20 giant corpses that he had frozen outside the door. With a wave of his hand, the 20 giant corpses turned into ice powder and fell to the ground. Li Hong stared blankly at the drifting snowflakes outside the city. Then, he took a deep breath and pursed his lips. The danger of exterminating the camp vanished the instant the martial emperor arrived. So powerful. Was that the next realm he wanted to break through? He also wanted to break through as soon as possible. Bing Feng clapped his hands, looked relaxed, and said, "This number and scale are much stronger than Li Ying's. You guys actually managed to hold on for 8 days. You're really not simple." "What a pity." The red-cloved martial king looked at the drifting light blue snowflakes with a lonely look in his eyes. Ding Gang was too impulsive. After all, Mata was a man who had seen great storms and waves. He quickly regained his composure, cupped his fists and said, "Thank you, Lord Iceberg, for coming here to deal with the enemy. If Lord Iceberg is not in a hurry to go back, you must let me entertain you." Hearing this, Bing Feng raised his eyebrows. "Go back? I didn't say that the problem you encountered was solved." Mata was startled. He turned around and walked to the edge of the city wall. His face became serious again. Bing Feng walked to his side and pointed at the dark sky. "You can see that the black fog hasn't dissipated. Do you think that the corpse spirit will let it go? If the corpse spirit was so easy to deal with, the Realm Lord wouldn't have been alarmed." Speaking of this, Bing Feng frowned and lowered his voice. "It's coming." The moment his voice fell, a strange cry unique to the corpse spirit came from the black fog and approached quickly in a few breaths. Bing Feng's eyes turned cold. He stretched out his right hand and said softly, "Appear." In an instant, a huge ice flower appeared in his hand and rotated to the size of the city wall. Just a few breaths after the ice flower was formed, the huge white shadow fiercely hit the ice flower. At that moment, the space where the two collided froze for a moment, and then, boom! The deafening shock wave spread to both sides, forming ripples that shattered the rest of the green light curtain in the blink of an eye. Under everyone's shocked gazes, countless fragments of the light curtain rolled back and disappeared. Li Qingling gave a muffled groan and blood flowed from the corner of her mouth. Seeing this, Li Hong hurriedly stood in front of her and looked at the scene outside the city in shock. 2 deep, pitch-black cracks appeared on the ground where the two collided. They were like natural rifts, bottomless. Was this caused by a human? How could the battle between martial emperors be so horrible? Bing Feng withdrew his hand. His face turned pale for a moment and then returned to normal. However, he frowned and stared at the pure white giant corpse outside the ice flower. Its body was snow-white, which was completely different from the ordinary giant corpses. It seemed to have the bloodline of Gao Gong, showing its nobility everywhere. Its aura also contained a strong pressure, which was no less than that of a martial emperor. At the corner of its mouth, an ordinary corpse revealed its eyes and stared at the city wall with hatred. Seeing this thing, Bing Feng sighed inwardly. This beast actually remembered him. Last time, it luckily escaped. It was much stronger and smarter than before. At this time, the Realm Lord went to Qingshui Circle and couldn't be contacted. Other martial emperors were in charge of the Baiqing camp, and they couldn't come here in a few days. He might not be able to protect Ma Ying alone. It's really difficult. Bing Feng murmured to himself and turned to look at Mada, who showed a rare look of horror. He sighed and said, "This corpse spirit did not play seriously before. Otherwise, the Ma camp could not even hold on for a day." "Lord Bing Feng, what should we do now?" Facing an enemy comparable to a martial emperor, Mada was helpless and could only ask for Bing Feng's help. Bing Feng frowned and operated the ice flower to resist the white giant corpse's probing. After thinking for a moment, he asked, "Do you have any powerful rune matrices? If I fight with it, the aftermath alone can kill or injure more than half of the Ma camp." Mada shook his head and smiled bitterly. "The green light curtain is the last means. The remaining ones are only some rune matrices of the 7th level, which are useless." Bing Feng felt a headache. He looked back at the dark sky and could not find any green light. How could it be consumed so completely? In the courtyard, Wu Rong looked up and saw the last green light beam disappear into Su Li's room. She was stunned. It was not that the leader's protective means were weak, but most of the green light beam was eaten by Su Li? In this case, we have to use extreme means. Bing Feng sighed and felt a little regretful. If he had known this, he would not have come with Ma Jintian. Maybe he would have lost his life. Lord Bing Feng. Li Qingling walked over and stared at Bing Feng's face, which had not changed much after 50 years. "I am Li Ying's." "Oh, it's you?" Bing Feng interrupted Li Qingling. He still remembered Li Qingling. He smiled and squinted his eyes. "Why can I meet you every time the zombie appears? You are so lucky." Li Qingling was surprised to see that he was still in the mood to joke. However, after hearing his words, her uneasy heart calmed down a lot. Bing Feng turned his head around, looking at Mada with a serious expression. His smile disappeared, and Mada's spirit was lifted. "Leader Ma, I'm going to open the field." Bing Feng's first transmitted sound made Mada's face change. "Field? Lord Bing Feng, you are from Qingshui Circle, so you know that the field of the martial emperor in our Qimo Circle is not good. Can only hold for 2 hours at most." Bing Feng looked serious. "Make good use of the 2 hours. Take all the people in the city to escape. Even if ordinary people run for 2 hours, it is enough for them to run to a place where the aftermath can't reach. At that time I can fight freely. Do you understand?" Mada looked confused and couldn't help retorting, "But after you open the field for 2 hours, you still, no buts." Bing Feng interrupted Mada and said with a serious face, "Go and arrange it." Mada was full of grief and indignation. He looked at Bing Feng for a long time, and then went down the city wall to pass the order. "That's more like it." Bing Feng smiled and glanced at the martial kings on the city wall, saying, "You go too, in case you are hurt and die in vain." The martial king in red saluted Bing Feng and turned to chase Mada. He wanted to know what Bing Feng and Mada had talked about. "I won't go." Li Qingling looked at the ice peak, her hand holding the rune formation. Her voice was soft but firm. "I won't let you die." She had no confidence now, or there was only one obsession left. No matter what the result was, she had to try. "Silly girl, what nonsense are you talking about?" Bing Feng laughed and stood on the edge of the city wall, looking at the giant white corpse behind the ice flowers. "I am so strong. How can I die? Since you don't want to go, just watch how I trample on this white-haired monster." As soon as he finished speaking, Bing Feng stopped smiling and opened his hands. He shouted in a deep voice, "Snow region, come to me!" Crash! A heavy snowstorm came suddenly and instantly wrapped Bing Feng's body. He turned into snowflakes and disappeared on the city wall, along with the giant white corpse behind the ice flowers. It seemed that the snowstorm had locked up the small area in front of them. No fluctuations of fighting could come out from it. In the falling snowflakes, Li Hong stood on the wall. He could still see the fight in the so-called snow region through the reflection of the nothingness. He slightly opened his mouth in astonishment. Miracle? The latest chapter of Poisonous Wife, the full text of Poisonous Wife, the download of Poisonous Wife, the Poisonous Wife. For the convenience of reading next time, you can click Collect below to record this time. You can read it next time when you open the bookshelf. If you like Poisonous Wife, please recommend it to your friends, QQ, blog, WeChat, etc. Thank you for your support. Chapter 651. You can search for Poisonous Wife in Baidu. You can search for the latest chapter. It's not a miracle. Mada, who had returned to the city wall, walked over slowly. The domain consumes a lot of energy and has many disadvantages. It's not the best way for him to fight. But he has to do this for the residents in the camp. We have to evacuate the residents as far away as possible in order to make up for his sacrifice. Sacrifice? Li Qingling's pupils shrank. Milord Bing Feng will die. I don't know. Mada let out a sigh and leaned against the city wall. His eyes were filled with worry. I only know that if Bing Feng uses his realm domain for more than 2 hours, he will be exhausted and unable to fight anymore. At that time, even a child can easily kill him. I didn't expect that. Li Hong stared at the back of the figure in the snow region and clenched his teeth. Even the martial lord was not strong enough? 50 years ago, he was only a warrior at the 7th level and could not change the situation. But this time, as a martial lord, he still felt powerless. In the snow region, Bing Feng's face was as pale as the surrounding snow. He looked around helplessly at the vast white domain. Tut, he really hides. Bing Feng sat down helplessly and couldn't help but whisper, "It's really killing me. Why can't the domain we developed be like those practitioners in Qinshui Circle, who can control everything in a circle? I can't even sense a trace of the zombie. It's so uncomfortable." He looked back at the city wall and saw Mada, Li Qingling, and Li Hong were still guarding on the city wall. He couldn't help but smile and said, "Hurry up. Mada, you have to take care of your son. If you die here, what about your son? And you brother and sister, you finally survived the catastrophe last time. Why do you want to die this time?" "I have entrusted Jin Tian to someone reliable. Milord Bing Feng, focus on the battle and don't worry about me. At least I am here. If you fail, it will only chase me instead of the troops in the rear." Li Hong and Li Qingling looked at each other and smiled. Then they raised their heads with obsession in their eyes and said calmly, "I can also buy time. This time, I won't give up on anyone." "Fool!" Bing Feng laughed and scolded. How could their Qimo circle produce such idiots? Even Mada, a man of Qinshui Circle who was known for his selfishness, was influenced by them. In the blink of an eye, more than an hour had passed, and the snowy domain had visibly thinned. Bing Feng sat cross-legged on the ground like a statue, but he still did not give up looking for the corpse spirit. If he could discover it, even if he had to bury the snow domain and the corpse spirits with him, it would still be worth it. At this moment, another person ascended the city wall. It was the red-clothed martial king who had returned. When he saw the situation on the city wall, his heart trembled. He respectfully bowed to Bing Feng, who was in the snowy region. "Lord Bing Feng, the ordinary residents in the city have all evacuated from the camp and moved to the rear. The ordinary warriors are also quite a distance away from the city wall." "All right." Bing Feng abruptly stood up and waved his hand. The wind and snow surged up and melted the snow domain instantly. Heavy snow poured down and covered the dark red color of the city wall, turning it into pure white. Bing Feng was gasping for breath, standing in the middle of the snowfield. All of a sudden, something strange happened. Not far behind Bing Feng, a giant white claw suddenly pierced out of the snowfield and was about to pierce through Bing Feng's back at lightning speed. The 4 people on the city wall were so shocked that they had no time to warn Bing Feng. Alas, with a sigh, the giant white claw froze in the air again. Frost climbed up the giant claw and soon, the giant white corpse hiding in the snow was completely frozen. At this moment, Bing Feng turned around. His ruddy face was still wearing a smile, and he said sarcastically, "This trick again? It's exactly the same as 50 years ago. Do you think I will fall for the same trick twice? Corpse spirit, it seems that you are not very smart. Bang! The corpse spirit's angry cry came from the giant corpse. Cracks appeared on the giant white corpse. Bing Feng's face changed slightly and he immediately retreated. In the next moment, the ice on the frozen corpse shattered, turning into countless ice blades that shot out in all directions. Li Hong and the red-clothed Martial King were already prepared. They brought Li Qingling and Ma De with them as they quickly dodged the attacks. Swish! 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 The ice blades pierced through the city wall, and the solid wall was riddled with holes in the blink of an eye. The city wall that had stood for thousands of years suddenly collapsed and turned into ruins, revealing large pieces of black lotus stone. Bang! The corpse spirit's voice turned calm. The huge, pure white corpse reared its head back and roared. Then, it strode towards the icy peak. With the advantage of its huge body and mass, it was no slower than a regular martial emperor. Just in time, Bing Feng waved his hand and a long spear shining with light blue cold air appeared out of thin air. He grabbed the spear handle and thrust it at the giant corpse's face. Boom! 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 Two figures, one big and one small, kept flashing, creating deafening sounds. The terrifying collision left one big pit after another on the ground. The two suddenly fell into a fierce battle. Li Qingling clenched her fists and watched the fierce battle nervously. However, her cultivation was too low to see the specific situation of the battle. She could only ask Li Hong, "How is Lord Bing Feng? How is the battle going?" Li Hong's face was tense. He frowned as he saw more and more red lines on Bing Feng's face. In his memory, Bing Feng always had a cold and pale face. He had never seen his face so red. Li Qingling's heart sank. Even Bing Feng, who had killed 20 giant corpses with a wave of his hand, was not a match for the corpse spirit. The high-intensity fight lasted for several hours, until Bing Feng's face turned as red as blood. The ice spear in his hand was a beat slower, and the giant white corpse, who was still in its peak state, immediately seized the opportunity and clawed at his chest. Bing Feng tried his best to retreat, but he could not avoid it completely. Eventually, the giant white corpse scratched his chest, leaving 3 bloody wounds. Bing Feng stomped on the ground and retreated, landing on the rubble of the city wall. He spat out a long breath of turbid air. His gaze was cold as he spoke in a low voice, "Not bad. After 50 years, you actually managed to injure me. If you have more time to grow, wouldn't that mean that even the Realm Lord wouldn't be able to do anything to you? Today you will die." Bang! Bang! The corpse spirit shouted and seemed to be laughing. It did not give Bing Feng any chance to breathe and commanded the giant white corpse to rush at the city wall. Bing Feng became serious. He was about to fly away, but his feet suddenly became soft and he failed to fly. Oh no! Bing Feng's face changed slightly. Between life and death, he could not care about anything else. He directly rolled into the ruins and avoided the giant corpse's trampling. Bang! Bang! The corpse spirit could not see Bing Feng. He was angry and commanded the giant corpse to destroy the ruins. Hiding in the ruins, Bing Feng did not dare to move. He took out the carrier rune given by the Realm Master, but found that the light was still dim. Blazing Heaven had not come back yet. It had been a few days. Was he really going to stay in Qingshui Circle for a month? By then, it would be too late. Bing Feng's face darkened. He could not stay in the ruins for too long. Otherwise, when the corpse spirit reacted, Ma De and others would be in danger. He took a deep breath, waved his hand to break the ruins covering his head, and flew into the sky. This time there were no accidents. Seeing him, the corpse spirit was attracted again and commanded the giant corpse to chase him. Before the corpse spirit completely calmed down, Bing Feng sent the message to the carrier rune again and again, hoping that it would light up. But when the corpse spirit turned to look at Li Qingling and others in the distance, the carrier rune was still dim and had no response. Run! Bing Feng's pupils shrank. He immediately lowered his body to attract the corpse spirit's attention. But at this time, bang! The undead spirit's strange cry was filled with pride. The giant white corpse's head suddenly turned 360 degrees backward and opened its bloody mouth towards the ice peak. The dense and gloomy teeth pierced his eyes, and he couldn't even see the undead spirit that was hiding in them. At this moment, he had never felt that death was so close to him. Bing Feng! Danger! Li Hong and others shouted. Li Qingling's heart suddenly shrank. She closed her eyes and crushed the child formation in her hand. She did not know if she could make it in time. But this was the last moment. The last moment. Boom! The courtyard exploded in Wu Rong's horror. It's done. Following the low yet strangely pleasant voice, the world suddenly fell silent. The giant white corpse's bloody mouth didn't come down. Bing Feng stared blankly at the woman in black who suddenly appeared in front of him. His breath stopped for a moment, and his brain finally recovered from the crisis. He began to gasp as if he had been fished out of the water. Just after a few breaths, he suddenly found that the surrounding environment suddenly changed. He looked at Li Hong, who was also stunned, and scratched his head blankly. How did he come down from the sky? She came. She really came. Li Qingling was so excited that she cried tears of joy. As expected, Su Li was not weaker than Bing Feng. As soon as she appeared, she saved Bing Feng. Great! Is that Su Li? Li Hong's pupils shrank when he saw the beautiful figure standing in front of the giant white corpse. He turned to Li Qingling and was about to ask. Bing Feng, who was still sitting on the ground, suddenly trembled when he heard the name. Li Hong felt dizzy, and then he was completely blocked by Bing Feng, who looked excited. What did you say her name was? Su Li. Why, before Li Hong finished his words, he heard Ma De kneeling on the ground. He blankly stared at the figure in the air and muttered to himself, "It's really Su Li." Li Hong finally realized that the name was not ordinary. But Su Li was his sister's subordinate. How could it be? He looked at Li Qingling. Li Qingling shook her head and stared at the two people who were still confronting each other in the air. She said softly, "I only know that she is very strong. When my teammates and I explored the dead zone, we found her and rescued her back to the small camp. Later, the small camp encountered the giant white corpse. When she was seriously injured, she punched the giant white corpse away. Because of her, we could successfully escape from the small camp. Otherwise, we would have been killed by the giant white corpse." Hearing this, Li Hong finally understood why Su Li didn't show any respect to him when she first met him. It was ridiculous to think of it now. It should be him who showed respect to her. The latest chapter of The Poisonous Wife: The Poisonous Wife: The Poisonous Wife: The Poisonous Wife. For the convenience of reading next time, you can click Collect below to record this time, Chapter 651. You can read it next time when you open the bookshelf. If you like The Poisonous Wife, please recommend this book to your friends, QQ, blog, WeChat, etc. Thank you for your support. Chapter 652. You can search for Poisonous Wife in Baidu. Search for the latest chapter. In the air, Su Li held the upper jaw of the giant corpse with one hand and fixed her eyes on the corpse monster hiding in the gap of its teeth. "Is it you, little thing, who stirred up a storm in the city?" Su Li smiled and waved her hand. The corpse monster was horrified to find that it could not help floating to the woman in front of it. "Ah! Ah!" It screamed in panic, and the giant white corpse shrank instantly. The giant mouth left Su Li's palm and closed again to protect the corpse monster. The exasperated scream echoed in the black fog. "Damn it! Damn it! It clearly sensed that the terrible Numa of this world was gone, so it seized the opportunity to attack. How could there be another terrible human? After the giant white corpse shrank, it became faster and disappeared in the black fog with a flash of white light. Li Hong and others changed their expressions slightly. Su Li was in the light, while the corpse monster was in the dark. The situation was not good. Bing Feng was still in a daze, and he looked a little confused. He couldn't understand why this lady appeared here. It was so strange. Su Li narrowed her eyes and looked at the rolling black fog. She chuckled. Want to escape? I'm not Qi Tian. Buzz! The next moment, with a gray light that was invisible to the naked eye, her divine awareness covered the area with a radius of thousands of miles. The Numa of the corpse monster was as dazzling as a lighthouse in the dark. I found you here, Su Li said softly. She turned over her hands unhurriedly, and pieces of restriction runes fell like black snowflakes. Li Hong finally understood the origin of the unknown shelter. It turned out that Su Li had already taken action. Look, eldest brother. The fog is gone. Li Qingling's face was red. She was the most excited one. She didn't expect that Su Li was so strong. She was so strong. After a short confrontation with her, the corpse monster chose to retreat into the black fog. Even Lord Bing Feng couldn't do that. Li Hong looked up and saw that the falling black snowflakes could absorb the black fog as nourishment, so that the flickering black boundary could be formed faster. Without the cover of the fog, the corpse spirit screamed in fear when the giant white corpse was revealed. By the time he felt that something was wrong, it was already too late. He couldn't understand why the more terrifying fiery red human couldn't find him, and why this feminine and terrifying human in front of him couldn't find him. Covered by the black boundary, Su Li's eyes were instantly dyed with darkness, which was as bright as obsidian. The evil ghost integrated into her body, and she instinctively showed greed and hunger. It turns out that the creatures of the dead can be eaten. I'm really hungry. You've come at the right time. Before she finished her words, Su Li's figure had disappeared. When she appeared again, she grabbed the head of the giant white corpse with both hands, threw it to the ground and smashed it hard. Boom! With the black barrier as the center, countless cracks appeared on the ground, and it only stopped in front of the four stunned people. Li Hong gulped and stared at the black barrier. Although he couldn't see clearly, a human could actually throw a giant corpse? Was he seeing things? Right at this moment, Bing Feng suddenly felt a warm sensation on his chest. His communication talisman lit up, and Qi Tian's slightly anxious voice came from it. Bing Feng, why are you looking for me? Are you okay? Bing Feng came to his senses, took a deep breath, and said quickly, Realm Lord, you're finally back. Ma Ying was attacked by the ghoul, and the monster became stronger. I was almost killed by it. I'm on my way. Bing Feng scratched his head and sat down cross-legged. Looking at the giant white corpse being ravaged in the black boundary in the distance, he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Realm Lord, Grand Elder Su has taken action. You'd better continue to help her guard and sect. Who are you talking about? Grand Elder Su? Qi Tian's voice suddenly raised a pitch. Su Li is in Chimo Circle? Bing Feng was embarrassed. It's hard to believe, but I really saw her. Ha 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 ha. I see. Grand Elder Su, ha 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 ha. Qi Tian's hearty laughter came from the carrier talisman, and then the light dimmed down quickly. Bing Feng patted his head and was speechless. I just said it casually, and you really went to an sect again. Bing Feng didn't cover up his words. Li Hong and Li Qingling finally understood when they heard it. Li Hong's eyes flashed and he asked, Lord Bing Feng, is Grand Elder Su also the Lord of a Circle? Is she the Lord of Qingshu Circle? I'm not sure. I only know that Realm Lord and Grand Elder Su are cooperating. Bing Feng smiled and pointed to the black boundary. Maybe we will have two protectors of Realm Lord in the future. Li Qingling blushed and looked at the black boundary with admiration. Realm Lord. She actually had intimate contact with such an existence. Such an honor was so shocking that the battlefield in front of her was no longer the focus of her attention. Mada still knelt on the ground, quietly listening to the conversation of the three. Hearing this, he smiled. Although the guilt in his heart didn't fade away, he felt the taste of redemption. So it turned out that the chess piece that suffered the most miserably back then, the one whose soul had been scattered, had not perished but had been reborn and had grown to the level of the blazing heaven realm lord? You are really thick-skinned. Let me exercise my muscles and bones. It's so cool. Su Li smiled brightly. In terms of physical body, the body you drive is no worse than those so-called demons. Unfortunately, you are a great tonic. I'm sorry. The giant corpse begged for mercy. The human in front of her. No. She was not a human at all, but a monster in human skin. She actually wanted to eat it. Su Li turned a deaf ear to it and waved her hand to reduce the visibility of the black boundary. Then her fingers became dark and sharp like the giant corpse. I don't have the divine thunder with me, and I don't have a good sword. I can only use a primitive method to find you. Su Li licked her lips, and her pure black eyes suddenly lit up. Ah! The brief and urgent scream of the corpse broke through the sky and then stopped abruptly. Brother Bing Feng, what happened inside? Li Qingling asked nervously. Bing Feng curled his lips and rolled his eyes. How do I know? That was the black boundary set by Grand Elder Su. How could he see through it? However, it was obviously the scream of the corpse. Grand Elder Su must be fine. Before Bing Feng finished his words, Li Hong suddenly said, "The boundary disappeared." Su Li wiped her lips and turned to look at Li Qingling and Li Hong who were approaching. She spread out her hands full of cyan blood and smiled. It's over. Bing Feng saw the giant white corpse with its belly cut open, but didn't see the corpse spirit. He couldn't help but ask, Grand Elder Su, the corpse spirit. Su Li turned her eyes and saw Bing Feng. She asked strangely, Are you? Bing Feng of Blazing Sky? It's my honor to know you, Grand Elder Su. Su Li smiled slightly and said calmly, The body of the corpse spirit is very fragile. I couldn't stop it and the corpse is gone. Oh, I see. Bing Feng nodded suddenly. Looking at Su Li's bloody hands, he couldn't help but feel strange. How could the Grand Elder's means be more barbaric than theirs? Didn't the Realm Lord say that Qingshui's circle was a group of elegant practitioners? You are. Mada? Su Li's eyes fell on Mada. She had a good memory and recognized him at a glance. It turns out that you are in Qimo circle. No wonder I entrusted Tianyak Attic to find your trace, but I only got the result that you and Ma Jintian disappeared together. Is Ma Jintian also here? Holy girl, you are right. It makes me feel ashamed that you still remember me. Mada smiled bitterly. Ma Jintian went to the Immortal Hall to ask for help. His body is too weak to bear the anger of the holy girl. If the holy girl wants to punish him for his past crimes, just let me be punished alone. Li Hong and Li Qingling were at a loss when they heard their conversation. Uncle Ma was from Qingshui's circle and had a bad relationship with the Grand Elder Su? Tut, old Ma, you have a strong background. You even have a relationship with the Grand Elder Su. Is it because... Bing Feng's eyes flickered, but he didn't say anything. Su Li shook off the blood on her hands and said softly, Old guy, your information is outdated. Go back and have a look when you have time. If you really want to forgive yourself, you should obey the command of the Lord of Qimo Circle. Bing Feng understood the meaning and his face changed slightly. Su Li didn't say much. She walked past Mada and patted him on the shoulder. Then she turned away. Bing Feng stretched himself and held Mada, who was still in a daze, with one hand. What are you doing? Hurry up and call all your people back. And your baby son, Since you have a grudge with the Grand Elder Su, don't count on him. Fortunately, I have a piece of blood essence here. In the courtyard, Su Li opened the door of the courtyard. Wu Rong and others immediately surrounded her. How is it? Why did you come back so soon? It's only less than 2 hours. Su Li pointed to the quiet outside and said with a smile, It's over. You can go and help. I'm going to have a rest. Then she turned to enter the main room and closed the door. Wu Rong and others looked at each other and didn't know why. It's over? What do you mean? I don't understand. Let's go out and have a look. Wu Rong was excited and rushed out of the courtyard. Dai Hechuan and Li Dazhuang looked at each other and immediately followed her. The courtyard was quiet again. In the room, Su Li sat cross-legged on the ground. With a muffled groan, she opened her mouth and spat out a piece of black blood. The remaining black liquid flowed down the corner of her mouth and was wiped clean by her. I ate it too fast, but Su Li closed her eyes and sensed for a while. The evil ghost's eyes opened instantly. If you looked carefully, the pupils were somewhat similar to those of the corpse essence, and its pneuma had recovered to its peak. Compared with the time when she was in the Xian house, it was slightly stronger. The corpse essence had been absorbed in such a short time. In other words, it didn't need time to absorb at all, as if it was a part of the evil ghost itself. What exactly is a corpse essence? Are there other corpse essences in the Chimo circle? Su Li licked her lips and looked up at the outside. The Chimo circle was really full of treasures. The latest chapter of The Poisonous Wife: The Poisonous Wife: The Poisonous Wife: The Poisonous Wife. For the convenience of reading next time, you can click Collection below to record this time, Chapter 652. You can see it when you open the bookshelf next time. If you like The Poisonous Wife, please recommend this book to your friends, QQ, blog, WeChat, etc. Thank you for your support. Chapter 653. You can search Poisonous Wife in Baidu. Search for the latest chapter. While no one came to disturb her, Su Li calmed down. After solving the crisis of the zombie essence, she finally had time to carefully sort out her current cultivation state. First of all, she successfully broke through the third hurdle of Sueyu tactic. Thanks to the help of the zombie essence, she broke the barrier set by Mada. At that moment, she absorbed enough jade energy and finally completed the breakthrough. The changes after the breakthrough also appeared in her heart at this moment. The third hurdle of Sueyu tactics was Jade Transformation Realm. At this realm, Su Li finally officially mastered Sueyu tactics, and its horrible side finally surfaced. Only by practicing to this realm, Su Li finally understood why this method could stand out from many mental methods in ancient times and become the most important method of Kueyu Palace. As soon as she broke through, Su Li immediately sensed that her strength, speed, and responsiveness were greatly improved. Compared with before the breakthrough, they were at least 3 times better. It should be known that her strength was no less than that of the demon clan in the same realm, but it was far from the level beyond. However, Sueyu tactics helped her to accomplish this feat, and it was precisely because of this that she was able to crush the zombies in the battle. This fundamental level of improvement was completely out of her expectations, because Black Lotus said a long time ago that her physical body had reached the limit of the human clan, blood sea-like tide. Further up was the realm of physical sanctification that only immortals could reach. Even among immortals, only a few people could reach it. Su Li estimated that she was between the two at most. She surpassed blood sea-like tide, but she didn't reach physical sanctification. However, the physical limit was indeed broken by Sueyu tactics, and she didn't feel any discomfort. Moreover, she was the body of evil ghost. After absorbing the zombie essence, the evil ghost became different from before. She didn't have time to confirm whether there were other changes, but she was sure that she had become stronger now. The pneuma of the divine thunder of the 5 elements is still far away. It seems that I can only ask Qitian for help. But since Qitian is in Qingshui Circle, I can still improve during this time. Su Li opened her eyes and her eyes flickered. She had always been cautious. She would only choose to gamble in a dangerous situation where there was no other way. It was not the time to fight with Mo. She had to take advantage of the convenience in Chimo Circle to improve as much as possible in a short time. After the disaster, the Ma camp entered the reconstruction phase. Although the martial artists suffered heavy casualties, under Mada's arrangements, the camp was quickly stabilized and returned to the right track. Uncle Ma, actually, other than the warriors, we didn't lose much in other areas. Only the city gate needs to be rebuilt. Li Hong's face was a little pale. His injuries had not healed, but it did not affect his normal paperwork. As for the martial artists, we can only rely on time to recover. Mada nodded and turned to look at Bing Feng, who was sitting on the side, and asked, "Sir, do you have anything else to add?" "I didn't." Bing Feng leaned against the soft chair and said leisurely, "There's a great god in your camp now. Why don't you ask her what she needs? You know, she's your savior." "Of course," Bing Feng stood up and said seriously. "He is also my benefactor. Who can tell me where Grand Elder Su lives? I will visit him personally to thank him." Master Bing Feng is right. Mada stood up with a sincere expression. "I'll go with you." After a while, they appeared in front of the courtyard. Bing Feng saw the collapsed house on the side of the courtyard and the fragments of the rune matrix on the ground. He couldn't help but recall Li Qingling's action at that time. He smiled gently. It seemed that there was one more person to thank. "You're here." Su Li pushed the door open. She wore a black dress, and her quiet and elegant face appeared in front of everyone. "Come in." Bing Feng nodded slightly to show his respect, but he felt strange in his heart. It was hard to imagine that the girl in front of him, who looked like a young girl, could swing up a giant corpse of several floors. That scene was so profound that he would never forget it in his life. Soon, everyone sat down. Su Li looked gentle. She looked at Bing Feng and said calmly, "Since you are here, Qitian should have known my existence. Why doesn't he show up?" "Yes, Grand Elder Su." Bing Feng was refreshed and explained hurriedly, "When you left Qingshui Circle, an I sect encountered a crisis. The Lord of an I sect is now holding the fort in an I sect, so he hasn't come back yet." Su Li had already guessed it. She asked this question just to confirm it. Hearing Bing Feng's words, she couldn't help but nod. "I will go to meet him in person, but before that." Su Li looked at Mada. Mada was immediately shocked and slightly bowed his head. "Holy girl, what can I do for you? As long as I can do it, I will do it without hesitation." "I have never been a holy girl. You know that." Su Li shook her head. "There is indeed one thing that I need your help with." "Holy? Grand Elder Su, you are exaggerating." Seeing that Su Li's attitude was so peaceful, Mada was flattered and said, "It's my honor to help you." Su Li showed a faint smile. "I will help you cure Ma Jintian's injury." Mada's magic treasure helped her to break through successfully. She helped Mada deal with the zombie, so they were even. As for reincarnation mirror, the initiator was White Demon. Strictly speaking, Mada and others were just pawns, so there was no need to make things difficult for them. Now, Mada used the force of the whole city to collect Black Lotus stones, which was several times more efficient than her. Of course, she had to give something in return. Mada naturally didn't know the reason, so he was greatly moved and burst into tears in excitement. "Grand Elder Su, I feel guilty." Bing Feng didn't understand the ins and outs, but when he saw Mada's appearance, he couldn't help but feel sad. He cupped his hands to Su Li and left the room directly, leaving the space for them. Su Li quietly watched Mada crying and didn't say a word. When Mada calmed down a little, she said, Let bygones be bygones. Don't worry about it. What kind of magic treasure is the green barrier you took out a few days ago? Mada was redeemed at this moment, and his whole face was glowing. Although the corners of his eyes were still red, it didn't prevent him from answering Su Li. That is the remnant of Tianhe tripod. Tianhe. Su Li's eyes flashed with a touch of understanding. Then your identity? Mada smiled bitterly. On the surface, I was a talent of an ordinary holy sect, but secretly, I was a spy of Tianhe sect. There are many people like me who were planted by Tianhe sect. At that time, I received an order and entered the reincarnation mirror with my son with the secret help of Tianhe sect. The purpose was not for you, but to find the remnant of the treasure Tianhe tripod. Later, after we escaped, we found that we were in Chimo Circle. Su Li nodded gently and thought about it. At this time, Mada seemed to have made up his mind and lowered his voice. Grand Elder Su, I don't know how much you know about Tianhe sect, but Tianhe sect is definitely not as simple as it looks on the surface. I was just an ordinary servant in Tianhe sect. I accidentally saw something I shouldn't see, and then I fell unconscious. When I woke up, I found that my talent had reached the level of talent. I was overjoyed and worked hard to cultivate to the level of Little Holy Sun. When I was about to fight for the position of Holy Sun, I was suddenly secretly arranged to be a spy of other holy sections. Later, I knew that my talent and cultivation were exchanged for my lifespan. Mada pointed to his face. Now, I am only 3,000 years old, and my cultivation has reached Huashan realm. No matter what, I should not be so old. Tianhe sect has the means to turn the rotten into the magical, so they must have planted spies in other holy sections. What they want is not small. Grand Elder Su, you should also be careful. Su Li narrowed her eyes slightly. Her understanding of Tianhe sect was limited to the description of Feng Yuan and Tianyake Attic. Because of Feng Yuan, she had no contact with Tianhe sect, but she didn't feel bad about it. But now, after hearing Mada's words, she realized that she was careless. In Ni sect, Su Mu and Su Yang were from Tianhe sect. The relationship between them showed that they were both enemies and friends. It was very clear that something was wrong, but she had always ignored it. I will pay attention to this matter. Let's not mention it for the time being. Putting away her thoughts, Su Li's expression returned to normal. It may take a lot of manpower to get what I want. Time is pressing. Let's arrange it first. After a while, Li Hong looked strangely at the warriors of all levels who were summoned by him. Now I have an urgent task for you, which is of great importance. This group of warriors had been unable to help because of the previous disaster, and they were almost suffocated. At this moment, when they were summoned, they immediately shouted, "Lord of the Saber King, what do you want us to do? Just tell us. As long as we can help, we will not hesitate to go through fire and water. We will not hesitate to help." Under the excitement of the crowd, Li Hong didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Please collect the stones, just the one in my hand. It's better to get a whole one, the bigger the better." Li Hong took out a black lotus stone, and the warriors suddenly became silent and stared at each other. Wasn't this the most common black stone in Chimo Circle? Did he ask them to gather here to carry the stones? Seeing that the crowd was restless, Li Hong immediately added, "You also know that if Lord Su Li didn't help us at the critical moment, our Ma camp would have been destroyed. At this moment, she wants to use these black stones for a special purpose, and it's the time when she needs you. This is not an ordinary task. I want you to collect as many black stones as possible in the shortest time. Can you do it?" As soon as these words came out, the dissatisfaction in everyone's eyes instantly disappeared and turned into fighting spirit. "Brothers, let's go. We must dig the biggest one for Lord Su Li. Go, go, go. Go to the dead zone to dig. The zombies are all dead, so the dead zone is safe. Let's take a risk and dig in the depths of the dead zone, where the black stones are the purest. For Lord Su Li, let's go." Go, go, go! In the blink of an eye, all the warriors who gathered here went away. Li Hong was stunned for a moment, and then showed a big, bright smile. Grateful and grateful. These were the warriors of Chimo Circle. The latest chapter of The Poisonous Wife: The Poisonous Wife: The Poisonous Wife: The Poisonous Wife. For the convenience of reading next time, you can click Collect below to record this time, Chapter 653 Grateful and Grateful. You can see it when you open the bookshelf next time. If you like The Poisonous Wife, please recommend this book to your friends, QQ, blog, WeChat, etc. Thank you for your support. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.